Hey friends, we're off here with episode 50, believe it or not. So being that it is episode 50, I kind of wanted to do something a little bit different tonight than my normal format. So I'm going to do a roundtable tonight. I have some great guests for you, so it's going to be really cool, so stick around for that. Before I get into that though, I do realize, hey Cindy, how you doing? I do realize that, I don't put myself on camera too much, as I've been told. So I just kind of wanted to give you all a little bit of background about me, what the show is, kind of what I do before we get into it. So for those that don't know me, my name is Rolf Fries, and this is the Louisville ProActivist Report. Basically, I've always been into activism even since childhood, even before I knew what activism was. I just kind of thought activist thoughts and did activist things and didn't really realize I was doing those things until I got older, and it kind of dawned on me what was going on. But everything I do with the show, with myself personally, it's all about sustainability. That's the key issue to me. How do we create a sustainable world? What works today is cool, but if it doesn't work tomorrow, then we need to improve that. So that's what I'm about. I will say I'm a lefty. I'm not a liberal. I'm not a Democrat. I don't even call myself a progressive. I am a lefty. But I am willing to work with anybody on an issue if we agree on something. So as you all know, I've had Democrats on here, Republicans, I've had Greens, I've had Libertarians on the show. If you're working to improve the community, to improve the state, I want to work with you on something. If there's 10 issues and we disagree on 9 of them, but we agree on one, let's work on that one. No sense in arguing until we're blue in the face. So that's kind of what I'm about, as you've kind of seen with my guests, and I do the live streams as well. So my goal is basically just to boost activism in the community by covering what activists do, shining a light, talking to these activists, talking to grassroots political candidates, the ones that don't get any coverage, the ones when you vote, you don't know anything about them, you just see a name. Well, I try to get those people on the show so you know who these people are, know why they deserve your vote. Is it looking good over there? Nice. Okay. Thank you. So, and like I say, everything I do is kind of just from my leftist perspective and how I see it, how we can make the city better, how we can make the state better. I do like to work on legislation with local and state legislators best I can, and that's normally stuff, net neutrality, municipal broadband, election integrity stuff. Because I am into a lot of issues, but I don't feel like we can get these issues done at the national level. I think we need to do it locally, and I don't think we can get them done until we fix our media, until we fix our elections. If we can do that, which is a big task, obviously, we can get all the other things we need, like some of these topics we're going to talk about tonight, and other topics that are out there, Medicare for all, ending the wars, those kinds of things. It's going to be very hard to achieve that without strong elections, strong media. So that's kind of what I do is I used to work on national stuff. I realized that gets nowhere. So I used to be on a national page called Politics and Stuff, and shout out to them. They were great. I learned a lot there. But it was just kind of time to do my own thing and focus locally and just shift what I was doing, and work from the bottom up. So even with all the research and stuff I did, it just wasn't paying off. It was just time to shift gears. And so that's what we do. So we're connecting with the community. We get out in the community, help where we can, talk to all the change makers and everybody, doing what they do. So it's been amazing to meet everybody on my show. Thanks to everybody who's been on. You've all been awesome. Share a lot of great stuff. Hopefully they inspire you all as the viewer to either join them or get out and work on your own cause. So, did I miss anything you think?
Talk a little bit about like your upbringing and how, you didn't grow up in this system, right? So your perspective is a little bit different. You have an international outlook.
Yeah, so...
and you're up with international politics as well.
I wasn't born here. My mother's from here. My dad's from Germany. I was born in Germany. Grew up on 3 continents. Also lived in South America. Several different countries. Grew up speaking 4 languages, meeting a lot of different people, and somehow ending up here in Louisville, Kentucky, and just kind of sticking here. But what that did for me is just gave me a perspective of meeting a lot of people. just never just seeing the A and B side to it, but always the C and D as well, you know, and just different perspectives. When you talk to people in other countries about the same issues you talk to here, you get totally different solutions, totally different perspectives, stuff you'll never hear here, and that kind of caused me to open my eyes as a kid and just be more receptive to things and look at things in a different way, you know, not just how we're told to look at it. So yeah, with that being said, that's a little bit about me. That's the man behind the camera.
What languages do you speak?
German, obviously English, Spanish, and Portuguese. None of them that great anymore, other than English. You know, since I don't get to use them.
Are Spanish and Portuguese really that close?
They're very similar.
Huh.
You can get by just knowing one and going to the other country. You know, they'll know. And, you know, I got them confused at times too. I learned Portuguese second, and yeah, people would stop me and say, hey, you're speaking Spanish now. And it's like, when did I switch over? I don't know. But yeah, they're pretty similar. It is, you know, it kind of stunted my Portuguese and ruined my Spanish a little bit, but yeah, you know. But I grew up speaking all those and just meeting people and seeing the world and you know, it just gave me that big picture. And so, yeah, I am very much into international politics, national stuff. But as much as that interests me, the change happens locally, and that's what we're trying to do here with the Louisville ProActivist Report. So with the viewers, thank you all so much. Anybody's watching, shared, commented, I appreciate all of you. You know, anybody you want to see on the show, you know, reach out to me, tell me, and you know, if I can get them on, I'll get them on. I can't get everybody, but we'll make an effort at it. So, with that said, enough about me. Let's get into this roundtable. We're going to get into some great topics tonight. We're going to start off, we're going to talk about ranked choice voting. As I said, I am really into election integrity, and ranked choice voting is a big deal with that. We're going to get into defund the police as well. So everybody's got a lot to say about that. And so, yeah, we'll tackle that from all angles. And we'll wrap it up, you know, with environmental issue. And we're going to talk about our pollinators and just kind of how that works in the city and weed ordinances and how it's affecting it and things like that. So we'll get into that as well. So yeah, let me introduce you to the panel here. Bear with me with some camera adjustments here. Got 4 guests with me today, and I'm just going to go from left to right here. Everybody here is a friend of the show, has been on the show at some point, and sometimes multiple cases. But here on my left is Mariah Corso and Jody Dahmer. You all may know them as Beargrass Thunder. They're awesome activists here in the city. They work on food issues, you know, gardening. They were involved with Brianna's Garden. They were involved with the seed bank. They also work on like infrastructure, roadways, and stuff like that. Extremely knowledgeable about that. So they know as much about these issues as anybody I know, and that's one of the reasons why they're here today. So thank you all for coming on.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much.
And you know, before we get started, I know you're working on the seed bank. Just take a moment to tell everybody about that.
Okay, sure. Thank you. So what we're working on right now, it's called the Louisville Seed Bank Project, and it is a pilot program this year where we are asking for people who want to learn how to garden or people that are experienced gardeners to be able to get free seeds of different varieties that they can grow and then give back to create some kind of central local food movement, where that way, you know, we have a national seeds shortage. And if we're able to generate seeds that come from Louisville, that means that in future generations, those seeds are automatically going to be better equipped to deal with Louisville's wild temperature fluctuations and the humidity and all of these other variables. They'll be that much more likely to be able to feed a family. And so we're just getting started. So if you're ready to, you know, hear more about it, go to Louisville Seed Bank Project on Facebook. And we already have some organizations in the Louisville Seed Bank Friends.
Yes, if you want to donate or volunteer, look us up on Louisville Seed Bank Friends. That's where all the volunteerism is going towards the project.
Nice. So thank you all for doing that. That's an amazing project. Make sure you all check them out and give them like follow, maybe a donation. You know, get with them. So yeah, thanks for being here.
Send some sweet seeds.
So,
we do take donated seeds.
Yes.
It's true.
Fantastic.
So my next guest today is coming all the way from Eastern Kentucky. You all may have seen him on my show, especially in the early days. He was around a lot, those single-digit numbered episodes.
We caused some trouble, didn't we?
Yeah. Facebook wasn't real happy with us and did a lot of censoring.
Neither was KET.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yes.
Wow. Surprise.
I'll start with that.
You drove out to Lexington for us there, so I had to drive here for this.
Yeah, we did a 4-person protest out there in front of KET. Was that for governor or was that for senator?
That actually ended up having some major fallout. That was the governor's debate that they kept Jeff Young out of, and one thing led to another, and I don't know how much you want to know about it, but it actually ended up culminating with Mitch McConnell confirming Amy Coney Barrett, whatever. It was just like ripples upon ripples upon ripples spread out from that one weird event, but here we are.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was a good time. It was cold. But yeah, so came out today to say hi and hang out in Louisville.
Yeah, Jeff is actually the first person I met through the show that I didn't know. Because I was interviewing, episode number 2, I was interviewing Jeff Young, and Jeff Sylvester here showed up, and and so...
Yeah, the Jeffs operate as a team. We're good cop, bad copping America. But now I'm working on this drawing of an elephant.
Yeah, Jeff is an artist as well. He ran for what, Secretary of State?
Yeah, that was fun. That was funny.
That was in what, 18? 19?
19, yeah.
In 2019, Jeff
One of
ran
my
for
favorite
Secretary
things
of
about
State.
Kentucky is that we have elections on off years, so we actually have a year to concentrate on ourselves when everything's not overwhelmed with national issues. In my opinion, America is a plague upon Kentucky. Yeah, it seems like everybody pretty much agrees. So it was nice to have a while to work on ourselves. But yeah, I ran for Secretary of State, and it was fantastic fun. And got to meet people like you. Got to go all over the place. I don't know what... it's politics. Everything's out of control. Everything rolls downhill. You can't control anything. But it was a fun experience, and it's still going on in a weird way. I suppose now I'm working with Kentucky for ranked choice voting, and I'm also helping the Democrats write their campaign manual right now, which is just hilarious. But whatever. Anyway, so yeah.
Kentucky is for ranked choice voting. That's John Hicks running
that.
That is
John Hicks. Yep, that is John Hicks.
John's been on the show as well. John, if you're watching this, I'm going to be reaching out to you for my next episode to talk about some more ranked choice voting.
Yeah, John's a quality Kentuckian. I like that guy.
So Jeff here is as knowledgeable about state issues as anybody I've met.
That's terrifying.
So, yeah, brings a lot of knowledge here. So last and certainly not least,
far from
over here to my right, that's Melanie Cameron. So I've interviewed Melanie on the show once or twice. You all generally see Melanie out at the rallies and marches with me 99% of the time. You've probably heard her voice quite a bit as we have discussions as we're marching and stuff like that. So Melanie is an activist here locally that volunteers pretty much anywhere and everywhere, like everything, feeding people, clothing people, planting trees. I mean, I don't even know. I can't keep up with all the stuff, but Melanie is very much in tune with what's going on in the city. Knows a lot of people and is an extremely passionate individual about the stuff that she works on. And then also, for full transparency, Melanie is like my other half. Most would say probably my better half. So for those who didn't know. Yeah, but thanks for being on.
Yeah. A little camera shy, but I'll do it for you.
Oh, you got this. You got this. So yeah, let's just dive into it. We're going to start with ranked choice voting. And, as I was saying, I'm very much into election integrity, and there's a lot of things that we need to do for that. A lot. I've been trying to work with State Senator Morgan McGarvey on that, as well as Representative Tom Birch on some bills. To various successes, I guess, to be kind about it. But yeah, we're working on it. I'll put it that way. But one of the biggest problems I see is, we face the duopoly, and that, is the good cop, bad cop routine of the Democrats and Republicans just having no choices. They're very similar, except in their rhetoric, but their actions are very similar. So we need to break that, and we need to stop lesser evil voting, because year after year it just gets worse. The standards drop election after election, and we end up with people like Trump and others in office. It just gets worse every time. So how do we fix that? We fix the voting system to where it's just not two choices. There are no spoilers. There's no lesser evilism, and there's a few theories on how to do that, but the one that I am behind is ranked choice voting. I think it's the best way to go about it. It also has the biggest push out of all the different voting systems. So we won't get into the other ones here today, but we'll talk about ranked choice. Mariah, I know you're real familiar with that. Did you want to kind of describe what ranked choice voting is for the viewers?
Oh man.
It's tough, I know. If not, I can try to do it.
I can try. Let's see. So if you have 4 candidates and you're going to have a room of 100 people vote, and the top person gets the most votes, but they don't get the plurality of votes. They don't get the majority of votes.
51.
They don't get 51%. Very specific. Yeah. Basically, the 4th ranked candidate would be eliminated. You would then recount all the votes, because the first time you voted, you would have not only done your first pick, but you'd done your second pick. So all of those votes for the bottom candidate would then turn into those people's second choice. And then that goes on until eventually there's one candidate that has the 51%. So every vote still gets counted, even if it's not your first choice. How's that?
Nice.
Is that
Nice.
all right? Anyone
works.
add on if it could make it more sensible?
Do you vote for your first, second, third, and fourth candidate?
Do you?
Like,
Yes.
Thank you.
You can go as far as you want to. Now, if there's only, say if there's 4 candidates and there's one you wouldn't vote for at all, you don't have to pick the 4th one necessarily, But yeah, you want to put them in order, and it's always going to be the lowest vote total that's eliminated until somebody gets over that 51% mark.
Yeah, libertarians always have none of the above as one of the choices.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
The way to understand things is to discuss them. So let's look at it this way. Like, let's say we could have pizza. We could have, what do people eat besides pizza?
Hamburger.
Ew, okay, hamburgers. Okay, no, that's fair. Like, you want hamburgers. So
A
pizza,
salad.
hamburgers, you want a salad.
Salad.
And also none of the above.
Okay.
So everybody goes, okay, I can put up with pizza, but I'm sort of a veggie, so I want salad next, and then after that it's going to be none of the above. And we're going to talk about it and go around the room, and everybody goes, if we get to the point where everybody goes like, okay, yeah, pizza, then we do. And if it's sort of split in half, then we get rid of the bottom one. It's like, well, nobody said hamburger, so we're going to get rid of hamburger. Well, you said hamburger. Sorry.
I get it. I don't even like hamburgers.
Well, good. Okay, so nobody said hamburger. Well, yeah, exactly. And this is the voting system, as silly as it sounds, is designed to take into account these various tiny preferences and get things. So we get rid of hamburger, and now we're deciding between the 3. And the beauty of ranked choice voting is that you don't have to bring people back to the poll every time, because they put in their first 4, or they put in their choices at the very beginning. They also call it instant runoff. Technically, Warnoff, Wyckoff, Warnoff, is it Warnoff? The guy down in Georgia?
I know who you're talking
Warnock
about.
and Ossoff.
Warnock.
Yeah.
Attorneys at law. Anyway, those guys got in. Or Warnock.
Yes.
I'm trying to not call him Warlock. Warnock got in through ranked choice voting because it was an instant runoff, which is the same thing. There's one of the problems with ranked choice voting is that we're all doing it already, and it's just a strange way of discussing it. So, but ranked choice voting activism is actually fascinating because you can't yell at people. Everything else you can yell at people.
Mm-hmm.
Everything else you can wave a sign.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't go down the streets like, I demand more choices. There needs to be more things on this sign. You can't yell people into changing their voting system. You actually have to do the sort of politics that we were all taught to do as children and do not do at all anymore. Like, it's all about, you have to go in, you have to convince people, you have to get people actually on your side, you have to maintain and construct relationships, because this is a tricky intellectual concept.
Mm-hmm.
Once people have done it a couple times, like that video, which I'm sure we'll put in the links, once people have seen it, it's super easy. But when you're just trying to tell people ranked choice, it sounds strange.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds difficult. Mm-hmm. Kentucky has a difficult relationship with things that are strange and difficult.
Yep.
So this is we'll never get anywhere in Kentucky without understanding and respecting Kentucky.
So this means that we would have opportunities for the Green Party to step in, right?
Mm. Oh, yeah.
And we would have not just Republican, Democrat. We would have maybe 2 Green Party candidates, maybe 2 Democratic.
This is literally the only way. That's what's so weird about this. This is, of all the stuff we do, this is the one thing that will actually change anything. It's also the one thing that we can't get angry about. We can't get upset about. We can't push because you break the surface tension. But if you actually want to change the way things are done, of all the things we do, this is what's actually going to do it. This is the only way we can have third parties.
If we as Kentucky were really to move to a ranked choice system, would we need to therefore like change? I'm so sorry. I lost my train of thought.
Party registration?
Yeah, the party registration. Like the Green Party wasn't even on our ballot this year.
Oh, that's a different question, and it's way more complicated.
What do we do to get ranked choice voting? Like that's the what do we do to get it? Because so many other cities and states are on board with it for the mayoral elections. So what can we do? Because I'm trying to get Shamika Parrish Wright elected for mayor.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, and I think her chances are greater if we adopted this model
ranked choice voting.
of ranked choice voting. So,
Well, that's unlikely. You're going to get Shamika in before ranked choice voting happens. This is going to take a while.
Okay.
Nobody, it's like the quarantine. Everybody that's getting involved doesn't want to think about how long this is going to take, so we're all sort of lying to each other like, yeah, sure, 3 months. This is a 10-year project.
oh wow.
For sure.
No.
This is stuff that gets taken care of in a long time.
That sucks.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you want to change the Constitution of Kentucky and make me king, I'll fix that right away. But if you
Bring
actually
back
want
the duel.
Yep.
I'm just kidding.
That's a good campaign.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
So let me address that real quick, because that's actually something.
The duel?
Yes, the duel. No, ranked choice voting is something I was working on with State Senator Morgan McGarvey, and let me tell you all how that's played out so far.
Yeah.
So I went to Morgan about an election integrity package that included ranked choice voting. It had open primaries, as well as publicly counted paper ballots, to which he added redistricting. So that was the 4 things in our election integrity package that was supposed to come out this month. That was the original plan. So then the elections happened, and the Democrats lost pretty bad here in the state. And rather than
It's nice being at the bottom, though.
show the people they're fighting for them and want their vote.
We're a third party now.
Yeah. Rather than that, they decided to go another route and drop that bill altogether and focus on making permanent the changes with the mail-in voting, which isn't terrible, but it's not the key issue. It's like a hole that we plug in once we get the main things like ranked choice voting and open primaries.
Early voting permanent, not the mail.
So now that bill's kind of dead in the water. So if you see this, hit up Morgan McGarvey, let him know you want to see that bill, let him know you want to see ranked choice voting. Hit up your state senators if you're not, if Morgan's not yours. Hit up your state representatives as well. Mine is Tom Birch, but
no, not yet. It's too early. It was one of the things they said. Like in a very real way, you only get one bite of the apple. And like for example, one of our volunteers already tried to get Michael Adams. Obviously, Michael Adams, of all people, is not going to totally revise the Kentucky voting system. And now he's got it in his head that ranked choice voting is this weird fringe thing that's associated with this one guy that annoyed him. You can't do it that way. You have to approach this much more intelligently and much more obliquely because we need it. So you have to come at it slowly. Like, yeah, you can write your legislator. That's a good idea. Also, it's not really going to work. It's going to sort of like add a little bit to the tide, but it's better than if you don't do anything, don't get me wrong, but there's got to be better ways. There's got to be like ways that you can get your county party to do it. Somebody tried to sneak it in with judicial elections, where like now we would elect all judges through ranked choice voting, which why not, right? If we can do it. But
that's even apolitical, right? Like, aren't judges not even a party line?
It's an interesting question. Why do we elect judges in this state? Look, I'm mostly a fan of the 1890 Constitution. I love having elected coroners and constables, but man, elected judges don't seem to be legal scholars, do they? So will ranked choice voting help with that? I'd be lying if I told you I knew. I have no clue. No clue at all, but it's a place to start. We need to look at this more incrementally. You're not going to get Andy Bashir to just put this in an EO. This is a place where we're going to have to be really freaking smart.
So what are your thoughts? What is the next step for somebody watching at home that's buying in on the ranked choice voting and learning about it? What do we do? I mean,
think really hard and come up with a really good answer. Yeah, I know. I mean, like, more seriously, like, yeah, get involved and talk to other people about it.
Crack it up.
But what are you going to do? You're not going to trick your legislator into following this, especially right now, especially this year, because the Kentucky legislature. I mean, here's what's going to happen if you put ranked choice up. This is the best case scenario. You know, like, they only get 5 ballot initiatives a year. So if we put it up right now, we could probably get a Democrat to use it as one of the 5 ballot initiatives to stop the Republicans from doing something else, and it'll get crushed, just demolished for a generation at the state level. We simply aren't ready. So that's, I mean...
You got to get the word out. You're saying we got to get the word out.
Start talking about it.
We got to start talking more about it.
We have to find ways to use it, and everything that comes with it. Like, one of the things that the ranked choice voting group does is we're very serious about just ranked choice voting. And there's a lot of other voting styles. There's a lot of other voting methods. That's not what we're doing. So by opening the question of electoral choice, we get people thinking about it. We get people talking about it. We ourselves are going to stay focused on this. But absolutely, it brings a million other ideas to the table. And there's a lot of different ways to do things.
I think through Metro Council, you know, like introducing the idea through Metro Council too. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, we've been knocking at their door a lot, and they're under, Louisville Metro Council, I'll speak for us. I feel like there's a lot of eyes on them right now. We got a lot of pressure on them about a lot of issues. So I think if they can adopt it, I mean, all these other cities are doing it. It's like, here's the benefit, here's what these other cities are doing, why can't we do this? Present it to Metro, you know, like... Exactly.
Or so, like state or county Democratic parties is one place we were going to look, because the Democratic Party is desperate for answers right now.
Right.
Like, we'll do anything, we'll try anything. And this year's the reorganization. I don't know if you all are Democrats, or... I mean, it's cool if you're not. But we're doing a whole party organization from top to bottom this year. And we're going to try to get a bunch of county parties to start doing ranked choice voting for their local elections and get people into it and get people used to it.
I got an idea. Rolf, you can speak at the next Metro Council meeting on ranked choice voting.
Okay, that's a good idea, actually.
Yeah, I mean, I think we got to use our outlets, and we got to like get up in front of the Metro Council, get in their face, and just be like, hey, you know, they give you what, like 3 or how many minutes? 3 minutes to speak.
Yeah, 3 minutes.
Yeah. So you apply to speak at the Metro Council meeting, and then, you know, I think that's a good start, right?
Mm-hmm. I'd be up for that.
One thing that just came to mind while we were talking is that by having ranked choice voting, it would actually be much more competitive after the primary season in Louisville, because, you know, for a lot of these district races, it's always Democrat who's going to win.
Yep.
And once the primary season's over in May, there were some seats that were uncontested because they didn't have a Republican running against them in November, because most Republicans who were in that district knew they were going to lose.
Do we need a primary with ranked choice voting though?
Well, I think that if you wanted to be in a candidate for a party, that's one thing. But I think that what I like most about this discussion and hearing about it is that it would allow anybody who wanted a voice at the table to be able to put it in and have a shot at winning it.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, I just think that
I'm
would
a big supporter of Ja'Cory Arthur. I'm like super excited he won District 4, but just being a participant, you know, someone who lived in District 4 and voted in the District 4 race, like Ja'Cory won by like a few hundred votes.
A few hundred votes. You
know, and then the second choice, Robert Bell, they were not that far from the third choice.
Yeah.
It would have been very interesting to see a race that had almost 6 to 7 candidates in it, to see, those bottom candidates get swept out to find out who the 51% majority of District 4 really wanted.
And that was a tough one too, because we have so many elected officials that are just terrible. And here we had two really high quality candidates in the same race.
It was so hard to choose.
I had a hard time.
If I could have ranked them, that would have been way better.
That was so hard.
It would have been way better if I could have ranked them.
That's exactly the idea, is that by having this, I'm sorry, I'm interrupting.
No, you're fine.
Okay.
I probably interrupted all of you all. I'm sorry. I had
I'm
to like
oldest,
that
so
too.
really everybody's interrupting me. But
I
no.
know, right? This is like your topic, but
No, it really isn't. But it's everybody's topic. That's the point. That's the point of democracy.
good point.
Yeah. But by having more choices and having a better way of accessing the choices, the idea is that we have better governance, that we have better candidates, that we have a better way of, like, this is a step closer to ranked, to direct democracy, where we actually are putting ballot initiatives up for everybody to vote on. Because, and I need to mention, the libertarians already do ranked choice for literally everything. Like the libertarian primary is ranked choice, and none of the above is always a choice for libertarians. And if you live in Kentucky and you're serious about politics, you're probably looking for nice things you can do for the libertarians right now. Just because they are I don't know if they are as powerful in any other state as they are here, but they are extremely powerful here.
I really wish somebody could explain to me, and I'm sorry, I'm derailing.
Okay.
Rolf's used to me doing stuff like this, but it's just like, what is the difference between a libertarian and a lefty and a Green Party? Like, how would you differentiate? Because, early on, Rolf said, I'm a leftist, I'm not a progressive. We have all this nomenclature to describe politics, and I do feel like we get muddled and we start getting divisive. And it's a little annoying at this point, in my opinion. And I wish we could try to figure this out and come together instead of this, hey, I'm this, I'm that. And just say, hey, these are the issues that are most important, like Green Party, environmental issues are extremely important. What would you say Libertarian Party has on their top priority, or?
Well, actually, the Libertarians are extremely good about the environment too. That's why I started hanging out with them, is because the Libertarians accidentally saved Bernheim Forest a couple of years ago.
Oh, cool.
Like, that was actually Rand Paul that saved Bernheim Forest, and he got zero credit for it because America is poisoned by hatred on all sides. Everybody's just filled with hatred all the time, everywhere I go, everybody I talk to. Everybody just hates and hates and hates and hates. And I was so glad to hear you say that, Rolf, because, if somebody disagrees with me about 9 things and they agree with me about the 10th, I'm going to concentrate on the 10th, and I will not feel bad about it.
Yeah.
And I always try to respect what you and Josh French and other people say about leftism on the internet, and I also just try to let it go because it doesn't really speak to me at all, even a little bit. Like, to me, leftism is liberalism with a sort of like social media gamified, clueless high school thing added on top of it. Like, I don't feel like leftism is adding anything good to liberalism besides, well, we're not with those people. And the way that they're dividing everything into like liberals and versus leftist bothers me, because I'm a liberal and I'm not going to change. I've always been a liberal. I've been a liberal since 1983. That's absolutely not going to change. Liberalism means something to me. It stands for something. And I'm not going to stop calling myself that because it's currently unpopular. And these things that people say about liberals, I'm just sitting here laughing. Like, I will trade harsh rhetoric about Joe Biden with you all day. There's no way you have a lower opinion of Joe Biden than I do. I'm harder on, I don't know, I feel like I
See, to me, I think that might be part of the problem, though, is that I think it's fine that you're a liberal. I grew up in a Republican family. I grew up with conservatives. Like, I have friends from all over, but at the same time, like, it means something to you. You identify with it, so you're taking a stance. You're attaching yourself to it, and it's something that you said you're not going to change. And to me, I think we should all be in a mode where it's like, I don't want to hear your opinion. I want to change. I'm a nothing, because at this point I've been a Republican, I've been an independent, I've been a Democrat, we're sharing leftist memes now, and at this point I just want to always continue growing, finding new ideas and solving solutions. And I want to be a solutioner, and you know, I respect what you had to say there, but at the same time, I think the core of that is that always change.
Yeah,
always
absolutely.
change.
Yeah.
And I will say, just like being like born and raised in Kentucky, like I will say, being queer in 1990s and early 2000s Kentucky was work, because I had to deal with LGBT issues being nationalized, and I had we had passed a constitutional amendment saying that I couldn't marry. That was reversed by the Supreme Court ruling 5 years ago, which took everybody by surprise in Kentucky and could be rescinded at any point in the future. So you know, it's kind of weird, because after that ruling came out, everybody kind of just let it go, even though they were incredibly hateful and incredibly violent about that topic before. And now it's suddenly a non-issue because the Supreme Court solved it. And so for me, I'm okay with everybody as long as they treat me as a person and not something that they need to make sure their child does not ever see the gays or learn about you know, anything that isn't Christian. Because I mean, I was born and raised Christian, and it really messed me up, because you know, if you get taught all the time that you're a sinner and you're doomed to hell, why would you want to work to do anything for your people? Because you know, I just really want to make sure that whatever we do for Kentucky, we care about one another. Because at the end of the day, we're all we got. Like your neighbors are your community.
Absolutely.
I don't know what I am right now. I'm unidentified creature over here that just loves on everybody and wants to live on the city. I don't know. I'm confused. I'm sorry. It does.
I think for the most part. Oh, sorry.
No, I'm just saying. Like, I think it creates a divisive environment when we have all these terms flying around. Yeah. And you're this, you're that, you know. But
the word's invidious.
You know.
Yeah.
To me, it's all about the issues and being solution oriented.
I do think there's a mental architecture difference in between, you know, a lot of people put it as a graph or whatever, but I think it is there. And I prefer to describe it as conservative and liberal, but obviously there's a million different ways to describe it. But I feel like liberals are one of the two basic political personality types. They're effusive, they're outgoing, they're looking for new ideas. Whereas conservatives are retractive, they're, saturnine's not the word, but they're less trustworthy. They want to make sure, you know, one side builds the bridge, the other side tests it. Or another way, one side piles the wood, the other one starts the fire. However you want to look at it. But I think there's an interplay there, and I think it's important. And although I'm very much a neophile, I like things that are new as opposed to a neophobe. People that hate things that are new, those people tend to end up conservatives. I'm very much a neophile. I'm very open to new ideas. I very much like doing new things. And I think that's real. Yeah. And it can be described a lot of different ways, but I think that's the real division. And I think that's the part that can't be gotten over. Yeah, just my opinion.
And even though I identify as a leftist, to me at the end of the day, it's about policy. And you know, what policies work for the people. You know, so if there's a party that starts rolling out policies for the people, I will roll with that party. You know, but when you have two parties that aren't rolling out any policies for the people, and if they do, it's some kind of, you know, half-assed measure. You know,
get rid of these names.
But that's where ranked choice voting comes in. That allows us to vote for something. We don't have to vote against a boogeyman. We can still vote for something without having to worry about, you know, helping the boogeyman, so to speak. And we've seen that happen already, like Maine. Maine has ranked choice voting. They had an election 2 years ago where after the first round, the Republican candidate was in the lead. And as they whittled it down, it ended up being the Democratic candidate was the winner. So that's how things can change, you know, versus a first past the post voting versus a ranked choice voting. You know, you get a different candidate. In that case, you know, neither one were very good candidates, but, you know, nevertheless, we got to see the process work, and we know that it works. And
it's worth noting that this is a more beers type situation. This does not give you control over the system. You're still going to lose. Like, especially if you're a liberal, you're still going to lose plenty of elections. Like, what was it? Last year we got 170,000 Democrats, got 170,000 felons the right to vote back. And this year they voted against us. They all voted against us. And it was still the right thing to do. It was absolutely the right thing to do because Kentucky is more important than our particular side winning. So even though you institute ranked choice voting, it is not going to lead to your side winning the election more often. It's going to lead to you being able to put up with what actually happened more often.
It will allow you to vote for instead of against.
They're going to win all the time.
It will also allow, the formation of new parties and the growth of the third parties. I would recommend also, for those I'm not aware, check out Movement for a People's Party that has just been formed, and hopefully they'll have their first candidate here in the next election cycle and the next presidential cycle as well. So take a look at them from Nick Brana. He's running that, and they're doing good work. So I've definitely got my eye on them right now. We got a link here from David Haley. He says, here's some info on how California Bay Area rolled out ranked choice voting in various cities. So he dropped a link here with a bunch of fact sheets about that. So check that out when you get a chance, and I'll look at that myself later on, David. I appreciate that. Anybody else have anything on ranked choice?
One question I had that just came up is with ranked choice voting, it would seem like even regardless of whether it's a party person, like Democrat, Republican who's campaigning, it would seem like you wouldn't be as divisive because you're trying to count on being someone's second choice.
To me, it sounds like it would be a way to make people actually try to serve people again.
Because you can't just go to your constituency because you're trying to get the most votes total.
A lot of people make it these days. I shouldn't put it all on Trump because everybody does it, by identifying a rock solid group of supporters and just shoveling them red meat. Allison Ball is a good example of somebody who just has figured out exactly enough people to win the election in 2023 and just shovels them red meat all day and doesn't worry about anybody else. Where with ranked choice voting, you actually do sort of have to run towards the middle a little bit more. And I think it would lead to much better candidates.
It's going to change campaigning as well, because if you're a candidate out there running against one other person, you can attack that person. A lot of candidates attack their followers too, but with ranked choice voting, you can't do that because
gonna hurt
if they don't like you, you could still be their second choice.
And you can still lose to none of the above.
And so you have to campaign to the people and not just your base. And so it gets rid of kind of that hyper-partisanship that we see now, the my team type of stuff, where people care more about their team winning than, any consequences or victories that come from that. So
do any of the states that use the none of the above option have stipulations for what would happen just in case the none of the above won?
I don't know. The only people I know for sure who use none of the above.
I don't know. That's like...
none of the above would have won in 2016 and 2020.
Yeah, right? Just in case. Do you have to have another election after that? No president this year.
That sounds like a very Kentucky election.
Absolutely.
That's a good point.
That's what the libertarians do when none of the above wins. Well, they say, okay, we're just going to have to do it again.
Do it again.
That's fine with me. I mean, I think elections are good. I don't mind doing another election if we have to.
That's what I would. I agree with
whatever it takes to get it right, and that's the key thing is you've got to get it right. It's got to be transparent and it has to be correct. And you're not going to win everything, but you can live with it if the process is legitimate.
And
right now, people all over don't feel like it's legitimate, unless their candidate just won, then it's legitimate this time,
There's been issues with the election cycles for years, though, obviously.
Right.
Oh God, that primary was a nightmare.
Hot mess.
It's inexcusable. We shouldn't have let it go, but we did. So here we are. The general, on the other hand, was rock solid. So, go figure. But I think none of the above would have won for president in 2016 and 2020. And I would not have minded a do-over on 2020, especially if there was a rule that if none of the above wins, none of y'all can come back.
You gotta make me
weed out everybody.
Try again, You just quantifiably lost.
Oh my God.
That's it,
We'd be on Killer Mike's second term by now.
Right? Hey, I'm down with that.
Oh God, yes.
He is a beast.
Yeah. We wouldn't have gotten an album. But anyway, yes, worth it.
Yeah, so that's ranked choice voting. Check it out if you're not familiar with it. Watch some videos on
voting on Facebook and Twitter and
Kentuckians for ranked choice voting.
MySpace, we have a MySpace.
Oh heck yeah!
And like I said, I'm going to reach out to John Hicks.
Come
got a MySpace, yeah.
Yeah.
That was like his first.
Hey, you get on your AOL account and check it out, you know.
Make sure you aim.
Or as Biden says, listen to him on a phonograph. So.
Right.
Aren't we all a series of tubes?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
All right, so that was ranked choice voting.
I didn't think about that one. I was like, yeah, we are a series of two.
And on that tube note, it's a good segue that I have nothing for there. Absolutely nothing for that segue. Yeah, let's get into defunding the police a little bit. Yeah, I know that's a popular topic here. Especially in the modern day Selma here in Louisville.
Oh, God.
Oh, hey, there's John. Hi, John.
Y'all
How you
done
doing?
great work. It's very impressive. Seriously.
I want you to come on the show here very soon, like my next show, brother. So, send me a message. Defund the police. 2020 was crazy in Louisville, absolutely crazy. We have a long history here in the city with the police just being a mess ever since I can remember as a little kid. Even when I didn't, follow it, and we didn't have the tools to follow it like we can now. But even back then, I knew it was a mess. Now we had this Breonna Taylor situation. We're not going to rehash what happened to Breonna Taylor. We all know that by now. But that's unacceptable. That kind of thing. Gentrification was involved. Just so many things, lies, cover-ups. So it makes you wonder, what exactly are the police doing in the community, right? Like, all right, over half of our budget is going to the police. Here recently in the budget, they got a big raise, I believe $775,000, while simultaneously cutting our libraries $750,000.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and so that's basically the opposite of what we need to do. So we need more police because there's more crime, right? But there's more crime because we're not investing in the communities. So what we need to do is, instead of investing in those police, is invest in the community by, libraries, for example, definitely not cutting them, but adding them, and so much more, so many things we can get into here. But defunding the police, it does not mean abolishing the police. And a lot of people get that confused. We'll get into the actual terminology here, what you all think about the term defund the police. We'll talk about that as well. Yes, this is definitely different than abolish the police, which is a stance some people do have, but that is different, and we're going to talk about defund the police today. So I think I'm going to kick it to you, Melanie, since you've been involved in these Breonna Taylor protests since week one. I've marched with you a lot, and I just know that you follow this extremely closely. So give us your thoughts on defunding the police. What do you think about it?
Well, I've been disgusted with, police brutality. And I know that it's not, I think diverting funds is a start. I think reframing what we want police culture to be. Not rewarding them for how many arrests or how many tickets they give, but actually serving the community. Maybe a culture of activists. Replace officers with activists who care about their community, who are serving and living in their community, who make outreach calls. Following a model that's working. I know a lot of cities right now are diverting funds, like Seattle just diverted about $12 million for public safety. So that's I think where we need to start. I know Austin, Texas did something really cool with buying up some hotels to house the houseless. We have a huge issue right now with affordable housing, and homeless population is on the rise due to all the evictions. So we need these millions of dollars that are in the Louisville Metro budget for police to be diverted to, the well-being of the community, which, housing is a right. It's a human right. We also need mental health. We need substance abuse rehabilitation services. We need job placement. We need to help these people transition to society. So yeah, I mean, what else was it? I think you sent me something on, or you made a comment. There was, what city was it? I think it was Camden, New Jersey.
Oh yeah, Camden, yeah.
So they just like took the city police and
Fired
basically fired them.
Fired them all and said reapply for your job, and they had to do it.
And they created a county police department without a union. So the union, you know, is part of our issue because they're the ones giving immunity to all of the, you know, criminal cops. So
and qualified immunity.
Yeah, I think we need to end qualified immunity.
Oh God, yes. Shoot.
But yeah, I think that's...
Or expand it, like, to everybody. Like, why can't we all kill people at work? Why did just the cops get all the fun?
Not expecting that comment at all.
I know there's a little, like, I'm so sorry, Melanie, because now we're talking on top of you, but I have used that point to talk to people about defunding the police. Like, I come from the pharmacy world. I'm a pharmacist. That comes with a lot of responsibility.
Yeah.
I have people's lives in my hands. I deal with drugs that could kill people. Now, if I were to negligently kill someone at any moment, do you think I'm going to keep my job?
You get a 2-week paid vacation. Nobody gets to ask you any questions.
And you get to work at the
net
pharmacy down the street. So,
And I get to work at the pharmacy down the street. No, I'm going to probably lose my license, get a huge fine. It's going to be on my license forever.
And on the registry.
And my registry. Everyone that ever hires me or ever looks at my license ever again will see that mistake and what happened, even if it was a genuine innocent mistake. So for cops to have like the level of responsibility and care that they do for the community and just absolutely abuse it is absurd. Like, ask yourself, if your pharmacist murdered your husband or accidentally killed your husband, how would you feel, you know, and what actions would be taken? And I feel like you could put any professional job in that situation. What happens when a doctor acts that way? What happens when a lawyer acts that way? Well, lawyers. But, you know.
No, but even lawyers don't get to kill people at work.
They don't, you're right.
They gotta clock
they
out
don't.
first.
Yeah, absolutely not. Yeah, if we're sticking straightly to murder. Yeah. But
no, I mean, it's like, I hate to say it, but I don't respect any profession because I know the kind of education that it takes to get into things, but once people get past school, everybody treats their job about the same way that the people at McDonald's treat their job. I'm sorry, it's true. Doctors, nuclear physicists, everybody, after a little while, they're just showing up for work. And you don't want to create, I'm a big believer in systems, you don't want to create a system that leads itself to abuse. Like, for example, a person who's stressed out and knows they can get a 2-week vacation by doing something wrong.
Yeah.
That leads to tragedy. Human being, to imagine that it doesn't is a vision of human nature that I simply don't accept.
And a difference between that and, you know, I completely agree. Something I think we need to add in addition to defunding the cops, as a pharmacist and a pharm tech, you report to the State Board of Pharmacy. That State Board of Pharmacy is not there to protect me. They go after pharmacists. They come to look for your mistakes, to look for you causing harm to patients. They audit you. The Board of Pharmacy is there to protect the patient.
Right.
So where is our system that protects us from the police? The police? The FOP?
Right.
Yeah. I'm so sorry to have butted into you, but you know, I feel deeply about that. They're the only profession that we treat that way.
And one of the things that I like to talk about because I'm a very big transit advocate, I do a lot with urban agriculture and trying to get money from urban agriculture and even just cleaning up an alley. You know, one of the best things that a Metro council person likes to say when they don't want to do something is, oh, it's not in the budget. Sorry, it's just not in the budget. We just can't. It's not this fiscal year.
To talk about the budget, we were on a Bardstown meeting where
this was Councilwoman Armstrong, District 8.
But Jeff O'Brien said that the reason that they couldn't make Bardstown Road more walkable and add bike lanes would be because they would have to destroy businesses. Whoops, we'd have to knock those down.
And so the question is, it's like, one, why is that the first thing you think of? And two, like, we always have money to do the things we want to do. It's just we spend them on other things first.
Right.
So when we talk,
and that word sound discussion, they had a cop there as well who was complaining about how he didn't have enough officers to write tickets, and also explained in detail how they would not be responding to homelessness at all. And so to that, it's just to say that you have 50% of the budget. And to have the officer of District 8, one of the more affluent districts in our city, get on and say, we can't do our job, sorry. You know, and to also not provide those abilities for the homeless. Like, we just got rid of the living room a few years ago. The living room's budget, for anyone who didn't know what the living room was, it was a mental health facility where people who were in distress or undergoing drug, substance abuse issue, they could be picked up and then dropped off at the living room, so the police wouldn't need to take them into custody or anything like that. There would be a facility for them to be taken care of. It ran for a few years. The budget for the living room was $1 million yearly, but the amount of money that it would save from being proactive and actually trying to solve the problem before it becomes an issue would be insurmountable. But yet we had to cut that out of the budget, and we gave it to the police, who said they will not respond to homelessness situations. Not that we want them to, but not that they're responding kindly to begin with.
I mean, that's the problem. It's going to take a generation for people to trust the police again after everything that's happened.
And one of the things that I want to bring up is, who do you call when the police are the ones speeding? Right?
They're going down the wrong way. Like, I almost got hit. Well, someone actually, but you know, the training, like, you know, what do they get, 6 weeks, and they're already like in charge of the law all of a sudden?
That, yeah.
And you know, I think that they really do want bottom barrel, non-intelligent people.
Louisville Police does. Yeah, they're famous for it.
Yeah. So
do you think that's because they listen?
Well, no, you have the worst police.
You have
the worst police in Kentucky. Everybody knows.
Oh yeah,
well, KSB second. Yeah, everybody knows.
The hiring practices for police, they want to weed out people that are too intelligent, too much critical thinking. They want order followers.
They want order
and
followers.
They want people who, if they're ordered to do something that the average person would shudder at doing, to just say, yes, that's my job, I'm just going to do it. So they literally weed those people out.
Lexington. They had Hankinson as a cop in Lexington for 3 years or something, and they fired him and said nobody else should ever hire this guy. And Louisville Police was like, sounds like our kind of guy.
I think the Louisville Police contacted Lexington and they said, please don't hire him, and they were like, never mind, we're going to do it anyway.
Louisville was like, do you have anybody else that you don't want us to hire? You know the phone numbers?
One of the I think that defund is definitely a good word, but when we're talking about budget allocation, especially to council reps, I think that divesting is more of a word, because when people hear defund, especially that are not in with the government services and everything, they hear, we're going to take the money out of the police and you're on your own. And it's like, no, we're going to take that money that is being allocated, 50% of the budget, and we're going to put it towards stuff that you actually can use in the community you have.
That would take the load off of the police.
Well, who will come by my house an hour after something's been stolen and write down my address and birthday?
I think they should deploy someone who is specializing in, you know, that, like they do, I don't remember what city is doing it, but they actually, I think it's a small town in Kentucky.
Send a social worker.
Sends out a social worker, and any of, you know, that would encompass mental health calls or some,
I think Glasgow's doing that.
Is it?
Yeah.
Is it Glasgow?
I want to say. I could be wrong. But yeah, you're right.
What's also disgusting, and I will say, is we're not solving black murders in Louisville. So, you know, it's not just police killing our citizens. It's that they don't give a shit about solving the murders of Black Louisville. And, you know, they have so many unsolved cases. We have detectives that aren't competent in their work. And they just served as a police officer for a year. And now we're supposed to believe that they have, you know, the ability to solve a murder. Like, they
Not that I think this, but what do you say to people who say, well, the police can't do their job if no one comes forward and tells them anything? They don't trust us enough to tell them anything, basically complaining that no one's snitching. Have you ever heard that before?
I haven't heard that before.
Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to blindside with you. I've heard it a lot. Like, that's a big complaint where they're like, the police just never could do it because the West End citizens are just keeping those secrets.
Then what are we paying them for?
I don't believe that.
I don't either. Just to be clear, I do not believe that.
I do not.
I personally think the parents of the children who, you know, I know now they're getting calls back and whatnot, but before they weren't even getting calls returned when they were calling the detectives assigned to their, you know, the sons and daughters that they lost their cases. They weren't getting returned phone calls. So I think they have a lot of evidence, you know, like the parents know people that have came forward and given, you know, information that they can use. You know,
I think that's a great response. It doesn't sound like they're collecting information that's available to them anyway.
Right.
No. The murder solving rate is like dreadful, right?
It's very
it's
high.
very.
However, when somebody kills a cop, suddenly the solution rate goes up to like, what, 80-90%?
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know if they're, I mean, I honestly couldn't tell you if they're just throwing the wrong person in jail and calling it good on that one or not. I mean, I assume murders are hard to solve.
I don't know. I think that we could probably find people that are specialized in, you know, they want to solve murder, like they want to solve cases.
Like truly
you
the
know,
best
like
and brightest. Like you went to school for it,
They
like
went to
you
school.
studied for it, like have someone be like a true like
Just give it to one of those true crime podcasts.
You
they'll figure it
know,
out.
I don't know. My expectations are higher, I guess. And I think now that with the Breonna Taylor case, I feel like I've really dug in politically more so with Metro Council, state reps, you know. But what bothers me is like we can flood their emails and their phones, and we have phone banks and we have different approaches, but it doesn't really matter because they're going to do what they want to do. It doesn't, I think, you know, they don't have anything that says, well, if you get this many emails or calls on this issue, you have to represent the people. They can still represent their personal interests. So that to me needs to change. Like, where are the checks and balances of, you know, our representation and how they're voting once they're in on our issues that we assume that they care about, but you know, that's concerning as well. But yeah, fuck 12 all day.
Yes.
All right, so I've got a comment here from Cindy, and that'll kind of lead to a question. Cindy says the for-profit prison industry needs to be abolished. It's a driving force behind wrongful convictions. Not only do we need to have police accountability, but prosecutors should be accountable as well.
Did you hear this thing where all the Kentucky prosecutors got the vaccination, but the public defenders they're not even scheduled?
Oh, no, I did not hear that.
Oh my God. This state.
I think that's a really good point that you brought up, and I'm just like really starting to begin the understanding about the relationship between prosecutors and the police and
judges
and just, you know, how much prosecutors really rely on the cops to come and do work for them and then therefore let things slide, like, you know, to basically, from what I hear, is to win those cases. You know, the relationships that they have are much more entrenched together than I particularly imagined to begin with.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And,
Well, for-profit, does that, I mean, just to clarify, is she talking about privatize or just, because I think they're all for-profit. They're all for-profit.
That's a good point, girl.
You know,
that's a
because
good point.
if you ask me, like, there's a very small percentage of private prisons. Most of them are, you know, like city ran, or no, state ran. And that's all, in my opinion, profit-driven too. So, that just kind of boils down to capitalism, in my opinion. In lobbying and I don't know.
So someone told me that if all prisons and all jails were disbanded tomorrow, the number one criticism would be that you're killing jobs.
Yeah, absolutely.
For the prison guards.
Absolutely.
Same as like being against war.
Yeah. You know, it's like you're imagining a world where people don't have to rot in a cell for decades, you know, even their entire life. And that's not you're not talking about, like, when we talk about jail in Louisville, it's called corrections. but you're not correcting anybody's behavior by locking them in a COVID environment.
Especially if you haven't been convicted of anything, if you're just sitting there on bond because you're poor.
Which is like a third of the population.
Yes.
It's terrifying.
You just sit there in jail waiting for your court date to come up. Well,
if you have a loan,
and then by the
part's
time your
gone.
court date rolls around, you're grizzled, you're exhausted, you're probably sick from being in a room with fluorescent lights and 7 other people, and eating that terrible Bob Barker food. And then you shuffle into court in an orange jumpsuit and manacles. Well, you know, you dress for the job you want. And the cops, I mean, have you all been in a court lately? But like, you want to talk about somebody who takes their job as seriously as a McDonald's worker. A Kentucky judge right now is essentially a burger flipper, except the burgers are people's lives. They're just trying to get people through as quickly as possible. And if you show up with an orange jumpsuit on, you're probably going to keep that orange jumpsuit on. The amount of time that you get to actually talk to anybody when they're shuffling you through that system is really pretty serious, pretty seriously small. And yeah, they are absolutely balancing the budget on the back of prisoners. It's funny that if a human being has no other intrinsic worth, they're at least worth $32.50 a day to the city for keeping them in jail.
No,
the fancy way to keep slavery alive.
Yeah.
That's the modern day slavery. Slavery was abolished except for prison slavery. You know, we had prisoners in California fighting those wildfires for 30 cents a day. So, you know, it's crazy. We did get a little bit of good news in regards to private prisons with what Joe Biden did, which caught me off guard, and it's being overblown to what it is. But what he has done is he has made it to where there are no longer any DOJ private prisons going forward. So
that's a small
that's 7% to be exact.
Yeah.
12 prisons shutting down, and that's 14,000 prisoners. Of course, we have the largest prison population in the world. So you know, so it's not nearly good enough. He's being championed for that, but I will say that is, you know, 12 prisons down. You know, he didn't do any ICE facilities or anything, but at least that is 12 for-profit private prisons down. So that's shocking to me, that coming from Biden.
Do you know, Rolf, if they're moving everyone that's in those facilities, or if they're letting the majority of like low-time offenders out?
I've not heard as of yet. I got the feeling they're probably just going to move them.
That's what I think too,
but we'll see. They might let some out, but we'll see how that ends up playing out. And then, you know, he's got to actually follow through with this too.
I was hoping maybe COVID might play to their advantage, but yeah.
To a certain degree, we've got a lot of people out of jail in Kentucky because of COVID, but then the ones who are still in jail started dying. So it's a win some, lose some, I suppose.
One of the things, while we're still on the budget talk, that I think is really messed up about the way that the money spent for corrections is allocated is that it is mainly for the upkeep of the jail and for the staff. And so what I mean by that is there is no real money allocated for teaching anybody in the jail skills, skill sets, training, education, things that can actually rehabilitate people once they get out of this really stressful, traumatizing environment, to be able to help them land on their feet once they get out. You know, it really just seems like all of this money, 50% of the budget, is meant to try to catch as many people as possible with this wide-ass net, bring them into a facility, and make sure that they either stay in that facility or get farmed out to a prison network somewhere else.
And I think farmed out is a great word. The way we keep our prisoners is absolutely absurd. If we're going to spend so much on corrections, could we at least let people like lie down appropriately and have like working facilities, have blankets? Yeah. Like I remember watching a prison documentary where it was an LA prison, but it like regularly flooded with sewage, and there was just nowhere that they could move any of the prisoners, and it was just something that they were all used to, just kind of being piled in there until it got fixed. And it's just absurd how we treat humans.
And this is our tax dollars. This is literally robbing Peter to pay Paul. Like, this is our municipal money that is being taken from us to be reallocated in this, frankly, crime against humanity.
And I have to say, like, I don't even think a lot of the police officers like their job or like themselves. I mean, you know, we see suicide on the rise. We see we've lost a lot of officers after, I think, what was it, 70% after Breonna Taylor case, wanted to quit. So, I mean, I think that there's a little bit of buy-in too from LMPD, those that are fairly good people, that they don't like police culture. They probably want to see change too. You know, I mean, if they're that unhappy and there's suicide going on, people quitting, I mean, hello, they realize that it's like really bad, you know?
All right, so I got a question for you all. Cindy followed up her last comment by saying we also need to stop the no-knock warrants. So what I want to get each of your all's take on this is, with defunding the police, what are the areas that we should focus on? Meaning, you know, what specifically about the police departments do we want to defund? What programs, what initiatives, how they operate, stuff. You know, like no-knock warrants, for example. But for me, a big one is the 1033 program, which is a federal program that police departments around the country use to buy excess military gear. And they're budgeted specifically through the 1033. That's how we end up with tanks in the street and regular on-the-beat officers looking like soldiers. So I think that's something that needs to be done away with. So Melanie, let me start with you on that. What would you like to see with that?
So I'm sorry, was your question, what do I want to see?
Like as we're
funded?
defunding, what are the things we should defund? What are some of the changes you want to see?
Okay, I was going to say I can answer what I want it defunded to, what issues I want it to be addressed. But as far
That's
as
fine.
Can we what are some of, obviously I was going to say demilitarize, and you've already covered that. So I think the whole thing about overtime too, like how they're digging into all this overtime money and it's not really accounted for. Let's see, what else? I don't know, we just had an audit, right? Like we paid $190 million in tax money to kind of look through. There was these special PIU units. Get that out of there. I don't even know what that is. We never knew what that was. Even David James, the president, who he needs to get the hell out, he didn't know what that was. So why are we funding these special secret units? It's PIU, and what does it stand for? I can't remember.
I think it's public integrity.
Public integrity.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
I think that sounds really shady. And I feel
That's like Ministry of Truth right there. Yeah.
So I would say get rid of that, and aren't they salary? I mean, why are we giving them overtime? I don't really get that. But yeah, I might have something later, but that was,
All right, Jeff, what do you think?
Well, first off, Kentucky needs a statute of limitations. We have no statute of limitations. There's actually people in jail for tickets from the 70s.
Shut up.
It still happens. Absolutely, it still happens.
What?
That's
More
crazy.
often than you think. Yeah,
We're
absolutely.
bitching about Marcy's Law.
Yeah. That's a different one. Yes.
Okay, but yeah, sorry.
I'm still
completely different topic. Sorry.
We're hoping that
is
one
a
will
big
come down. I'm hoping that one will get declared unconstitutional again. But yeah, we need a statute of limitations on there's really nothing to be served by putting people in jail from a speeding ticket 40 years ago. We need to get rid of the war on drugs in its entirety. We need to pardon everybody that was put in jail for low-level drug crimes, and probably medium and high-level drug crimes too. Honestly, I don't care about any drug crime. So yeah, let them all out as far as I'm concerned. But it needs to be against the law for the police to lie. So anything that's based on the police lying needs to go. Sting operations, stuff like that needs to go. The police have to be trustworthy, or it can't work. So anything that's based on entrapment or complex levels of entrapment, especially because it's always used against the poor.
Is this about budget, or does it matter?
I'm trying to structure this in a budget way, but yeah,
okay.
So yeah, if you have a sting operation, cut it.
Yeah.
And also, I think that we should not have full-time police. I think that we should go to part-time police, and I think that the constable's office needs to be revisited by the voters, not by the legislators, but by the voters. I think the voters need to stand up on this one and start electing their constables, which will have direct effect on evictions, because that's who carries out a lot of evictions. There's absolutely no reason why we've let the office of the constable decay. It's totally the voters' fault.
What's
That's
a
not
constable?
legislative.
I don't know.
Constable is really a cop.
I
It's
know
a
that
citizen
word,
elected
but-
cop. I mean, you have in Kentucky the right to elect. I don't know. I think Jefferson County might be one of the counties that doesn't have constables. But
With the merger, yeah.
yeah,
I think so.
it's a
Got
shame.
rid of them with the
Familiar with
aldermen.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
but I
okay.
would rather have citizen elected police officers than
Yeah.
paid police officers. And like you said, like police officers are by and large,
Yeah, like the
everyone
sheriff
knows
of the
they're
town.
unhappy people. They're dangerous to be around. No one wants to hang out with cops anymore. No one's happy when a cop moves into their neighborhood because you think, oh, he's gonna beat his wife and then we won't be able to do anything about it. Fantastic. Like, the culture itself is the problem, and a huge part of it is that they're stuck in it. And I believe that the police do have a role. I think we do have to have the police for specifically domestic violence calls. Domestic violence and for crime scene cleanup. They don't seem to solve crimes, but neither does anybody else, so I don't really hold them to that. They sure don't return stolen property, but yeah, someone does have to go into these horrible situations and clean them up. And yes, someone does have to respond when husband and wife are beating on each other. That's absolutely necessary, or when a kid's getting beat. But that stuff is so poisonous and so pernicious, and it messes your life up so bad just being glancingly part of it, that I think being full-time is deformative, and it creates a situation where the police get to think of themselves as a separate class of people, and not part of the community.
They look for stuff to do. They
Bored.
they start looking for they get bored. I like that idea actually.
Yeah.
But I guess when you looked at, do you have a breakdown of the budget, Rolf? Like, as far as LMPD?
Melanie wants to cross out line items.
Well, I'm ready to. I mean,
Get out the
'cause you asked
Sharpie.
specifically, and
Do
I
you
think
really need
the
a new desk?
highest
Right.
number was military weaponry and gear.
Oh God.
And also overtime took up a whole. So I was thinking as far as the specific budget and the high dollar items that we spent, But I'm sorry.
I love getting
No.
rid of. I love the idea of getting rid of all like the militarized gear, but that feels like such an insurmountable goal in that the government, federal government wants them to buy those things so that they can buy
Profit.
new shiny
Yeah.
things,
Yeah, profit.
So it's just like, what do we do with all these terrible war, like this weapons of terror that the government wants to pass down into our communities just so they can buy better ones,
Better
I
yet,
don't-
what is our new chief Shields, like, what is her plan? Does anybody know? I mean, I know she's...
The Highlands test.
Oh my God! Yeah, did
What's
you
the
hear about
Highlands
that?
test?
Yeah,
No.
Have you heard about
so
that?
she,
Is it a
she
Scottish
said
Basically,
no.
if you shouldn't be police, like, you should police the same in the West End as you do in the Highlands.
Which they shot everybody
Yes.
on Bardstown Road with rubber bullets and tear gas in the Highlands. So
So
that
I don't really know what she thinks that's
I got hit right in the chest.
Yeah.
As a live streamer
That's
by a
the
pepper ball,
most brutal.
like in the
got
chest.
press vest and everything.
like
So-
I would say for me, one of the main things that I would want to see divested are use of cars. I think that bike
want
beats and
bikes.
pedestrian beats should be that only, and if they can't arrest somebody on a pedestrian beat, then maybe they shouldn't be arresting them.
Yeah.
The cars make it so easy to shove someone in the back. You can't get out then, and then you have complete control over that person until you get to the facility. And so if you're
High-speed chases only increase civilian deaths.
Oh, God.
and then you're
Only
talking
civilian deaths.
and when you have a car, then you can live in a majority white suburb, and then you're strapping in to go into the West End. And why does
You
it
don't even
need
live
to?
here.
Why do you need to have to drive 30 minutes to do your job? You should live in the community that you serve, and you don't need a giant ass government car to do
Yeah.
your job. I think that if we were able to get rid of a lot of that, one, it would save a lot of money because the government pays for vehicle maintenance. It also gives the use of the car in the off time to run errands, pick up kids, whatever. And I feel like if we're able to use that and kind of flip it, saying like, hey, what you're doing is not actually what the community wants to be policed. You're sending in suburban cops into areas that they are afraid, and you're expecting them to do a job that they are afraid to do in the area because they've been taught for generations to fear that area.
Stigma,
You know, and so
I mean, that's exactly what happened when they called in the National Guard.
Yeah.
And
like
they
the West
were
End
so,
doesn't exist in a vacuum.
None of those, for a lot of those National Guard members, that had to be the first time they had ever been in the West End in Louisville. All they had ever heard would have been stories, and David McAtee ended up dead for it.
Yeah.
And they had no reason to be there. There was no protest there. There was nothing going on there.
Nothing that different than whatever that happens at Dino's on a Friday night.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's Dino's. That's
that
not
was-
David
yeah.
McAtee. You
Can you
know,
imagine that
so
from David McAtee's point of view? Like, he goes outside, you know, it's like somebody's shooting in his parking lot. He looks outside and it's the fucking National Guard. Like, what are the odds?
And the thing about it is,
No way.
what a lot of people outside of Louisville and even in Louisville don't understand, the West End of Louisville is the size of Owensboro, Kentucky. It's
Yeah.
50,000 people.
Yeah,
And
sounds right.
people in Louisville write off 50,000 people as, oh, well, those aren't the right type of people for Louisville. You know, we just need to really focus on the East End. That's where all the jobs are. Well, why do you think that is the way it is? It's not like people stopped being racist after the law was signed. You know, like, we have a long history of prejudice in Louisville going back to the Civil War and before.
I mean, it's built into the roads, you know, up until the exit that they've put up into the West End and everything.
And until 1975, it was actually still legal in Kentucky to have racial covenants in your deeds.
Oh, yeah.
So until 1975, and by extension 30-year mortgage, 2005, you bought a house in a white-only neighborhood that was legally allowed and got a federal mortgage and federal grant to build that white-only development.
Paperwork still says it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's just a lot of stuff that has been built up over these things that, going back, you know, to multiple generations back, that was what was required, quote unquote, and that was what was normalized in order to maintain that separation. And once that separation wasn't legal anymore, the police still maintained it, and the city encourages it. And until we actually fix...
They were there to enforce Jim Crow laws.
Isn't 50,000 people, like, isn't that like the 5th biggest city in Kentucky or something like that? Like,
Yeah.
that's a lot. Yeah.
There's a lot of people.
That's
in
bigger
the
than my
West
entire
End.
county and then half again.
Yeah.
I mean, that's got to be, like, bigger than anything outside of, that's a big city.
And just speaking about how many people are in the West End, the new top to bottom police review that came out, like, I guess 3% of the respondents were from the West End. You know, so.
Well, I even think our civilian review board is not representative of civilians. I think most
Agreed.
of those that were chosen were actually already part of Metro government and had some tie to, you know, the government, like government work already. So it's like they already are representing the government, and now we're using them as our representation as a civilian. So that concerns me. You know, that concerns me.
kind of defeats the purpose.
Yeah. And how are they going to use that? Like, I feel like we need more transparency. We're asking for more transparency, but then they secretly hire, you know,
The police chief.
and we're not supposed to know, and it was anonymous, and we're not supposed to know how she was, you know. It's just like, come on. You know, it takes a long time to understand the regionalisms in this city. You know, there is a lot of gang activity and drug trafficking, and if, you know, there's a lot of that going on, and we're trying to help reduce crime. So I think you have to understand the neighborhoods, and there are neighborhoods that kind of battle it out, you know, like there is a lot of that going on. So how is she going to learn our culture if she's not from here? That's just concerning to me, because we want to crack the crime, but
I bet you she lives in the East End now.
Probably so.
Yeah. Almost certainly, yeah. If she lives in the city at all.
Yeah, if she lives in the
here
city
at
at
all.
all, she lives in a McMansion out in the suburbs.
Maybe
She
she's
helicopters
across
in
the
from
bridge.
Chicago.
It's very possible.
Yeah, what qualifies it? I don't know anything about it. It was just mysterious. Like, I have no idea about this new police chief. And
It was
doesn't
just
sound
like this little secret committee that they had.
And they all had to sign NDAs.
Yeah.
That should be so against the law.
Yeah.
But why would something have to be so secret if unless you knew that we were gonna be like, this is a shit choice?
Right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you had to know you were handing a shit on a platter if you were like,
yeah.
it wasn't me. Like, I don't get that at all.
Yeah, if somebody hands me something to eat and says you're not allowed to know what's in it, I'm not eating that.
No,
thank
it's crazy.
you.
Yeah, they're making these police decisions, almost as if we haven't been in the street for the last year protesting this exact stuff.
Right.
So, it's like a slap to the face.
Well, you got them scared.
Really?
Like those Taylor concessions were major. I thought they were brilliant. And also the grand jury impeaching Daniel Cameron is
That was a big thing.
if 2021 comes up with a better story than that, I'll be very impressed.
Daniel Cameron needs to lose his job.
Yes. Along with Fishy Fisher.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Why is Fisher still there? Did Fisher get reelected or was he?
No, he's turned out.
He's turned out a year and a half.
2022
he should
is
step
his
down,
last.
but he's not
He
gonna.
thought he was going to be Bloomberg's
Oh, yeah,
chief
Bloomberg
of
was gonna
staff
drag
at
him
this
along,
point in
yeah,
time.
yeah.
He had no intentions of being the mayor of Louisville right now.
Yeah, he was waiting to be chief of staff.
He thought he was out of here.
And David James just announced he's running for mayor, and that's also just
Yeah.
sick.
Remember-
He will
See
not
that
be
from
getting our
afar.
support. That was the worst kept secret in Louisville. But yeah, we
Everyone
will not in the movement. We're not supporting David James.
David James
Everyone knew
has
he was
voted on the
running.
last 10 years of budgets in Metro Council, which means that he actually had a stake in making sure that 50% of the budget went towards LMPD and corrections for the past decade.
Yeah, and he's not tricking me just because he didn't vote for the FOP contract this one last time. Oh, he got me.
Yeah.
Right.
I think that's going to be a goal to get him out of, his seat. I think that has to be a goal in order to get this budget diverted.
I think we need Shamika, just like you said.
Yeah.
We need someone that is completely
So she's
on
running
the
for mayor,
outside.
right?
Yes, she
Yeah.
is running for mayor. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I definitely will be supporting Shamika.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
That's for sure. I've already talked to her about that. So as we talk about police budgets and the need to cut them, at the same time, I think we need to increase the percentage of their budget to a couple of things that would really help. One, we need to do drug testing. I mean, we have so many roided up cops. We got to stop that, and that's where a lot of that temperament comes from. Not all of it, but it would definitely help.
Yeah.
And then, what was my second one? Training. We need to increase the training budget. What I want to cite as an example is Germany. They train their police for 2 years. And that's what we need to do here. We have something that's about 6 months. It's like 5 hours of sensitivity training. I'm not kidding. Like something just minuscule. Like they just showed up and watched a video one day, like your first day of orientation at a job or something. Here's this.
Zootopia.
Here's
They literally made him watch Zootopia.
What?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So that was 2 hours of it. Was they watched
Well, the
Zootopia?
Yeah.
end of the movie, you quit being a cop. Did you not get the point of the story, though?
So yeah, we need to increase that training budget. We need to teach them how to deal with children, how to deal with seniors, how to deal with certain conditions like autism, stuff like that, how to be able to handle that. Definitely pets. Police on average shoot 25 pets a day across America. That's insane. How many do mailmen have to kill? Like 0? So if a mailman can do it, why does a cop have to shoot an animal? And there's so many things. So, as much as I want to divest, and that's important, we do need to increase the training, in my opinion, and also the pay to and hiring practices to weed out some of these bad ones that, no matter how we train them, they're going to be bad. So, that's the other side is as we decrease the budget, we need to shift what's still left in the budget to things such as training, drug testing, hiring practices, that kind of thing, salaries, and just get a better candidate. So yeah, anybody else got anything? I know we can talk about police like literally till the battery dies on my phone, but
I guess I'll just put it out there. I guess because I only pitched it. I had that question. But I'm not completely with you. I agree with most of what everyone said. Completely end the war on drugs. And I think to Rolf's point, let's decrease the size of the force. Like adding more and more people isn't working. Let's decrease the amount of police, increase their pay, and really give them the support that they need to be doing what they're doing. But maybe let's change what they need to be doing. Like maybe they don't need to be showing up to these calls that could be answered to social work. They don't need to be responding to homelessness. Like, in my world, like, I almost feel like you should have high-level paid detectives that are actually out there trying to solve crimes for real. Then you're going to have, cops that are on the beat that are going to just write you, like, tickets here and there. And then after that, I think you should have social workers and all these other different groups of people. Like, I don't really think the cops need to be doing everything that they're doing. So, yeah.
One thing that just came to mind that Amsterdam over in the Netherlands implemented, which I thought was a really interesting government position. They have a night mayor, which it's not an official mayor, but what it is, he or she or they are responsible for anything that happens in the city after 6 p.m. to I believe it's 7 a.m. So they operate on a completely different schedule, but they're active for all of the bars. They're the main point of contact for the bars and nightclubs. They're also the main contact for all the brothels. If there's any problem with the brothels in Amsterdam, they have a government official who is awake and able to make requests, send out teams of people, and being able to not just have the police be the only government service that are up when the night happens. And so because that's happened, they've actually been able, because of that one program, they've been able to implement a series of government events that happen at 9 p.m. and like 11 p.m. where people that might be working third shift that would not have any way to actually go to government meetings, well, yeah, they go to the night one. And in the Netherlands, that was implemented about 5 years ago, and it was so successful that now it's completely standardized across. And so I just think that, having some kind of night mayor, because, it's Louisville, the bars don't close until 4 a.m. anyway, most, pre-COVID.
Yeah.
So, it's just like, there's so much we could do to help the way the culture of the city is after dark, because I feel like a lot of times, especially for people that live in the suburbs or were raised in the suburbs, everybody's scared of the nighttime for whatever reason, because they think that's when crime's going to happen, right?
Crime
happens all the time. But the most important thing is not really to feel safe by having a bunch of weapons. It's to feel safe in your community by knowing that there is someone who you can reach out to if you're feeling scared. And I feel like for Louisville, specifically where I am in Smoketown, you don't want to call the cops if you're feeling scared, because you don't know what the fuck is going to happen when the cops get there. And so if you don't have that, who do you turn to? And right now we don't really have a good answer for that.
We don't need cops, armed police showing up for just minor traffic violations. How many times have we read about, especially this is kind of racial profiling, because they probably feel like, oh, I'm going to pull over this black couple and I'm going to find a warrant and be able to arrest them too. And then I'll really rack up. So it's kind of like, why are we allowing our armed police officers to go and, address like a taillight or, an expired tag, which they know is going to lead to an escalated event and has led to,
They try to escalate it.
Yeah.
It's what they consider their job to be.
Yeah, so if we take them away from, like traffic violations and whatnot, I think we should have somebody specific to, unarmed people, metro, traffic officer or something. We can make a new line of work.
Something I wanted to bring up that I thought you brought up, Melanie, that was really interesting is the gang activity that does happen in Louisville. And I hear that brought up a lot. And I cannot pretend like I understand.
Oh, I grew up in the Bloods and Crips.
Yeah, see, I can't pretend like I understand.
That was my generation.
I wasn't from, specifically, I'm definitely not from, originally grew up in Louisville, so I'm not like privy to all the gangs, but I know that I've talked to a friend of ours that's talked about how he feels that if you don't have another option, you choose the gang life. Do you know what I mean? And that it is a way to work outside of the system that they see that oppresses them. So I would love to see some of the money that's taken from the police too to like revitalize that feeling. I don't know how to get rid of that feeling for people, but I like honestly believe most people will choose to do like legal things that are their passions, unless they feel like they don't have the option otherwise, or that, you know, illegal gang activity would be like the best option. I also think getting rid of just like the war on drugs would go a long way.
Yeah, I was going to say that's
with that too.
Hand in hand.
I do think they're hand in hand. I don't know what my question is anymore. I'm sorry. I just wanted to talk about it.
I hear, you know, we've had like a rise in our homicide, you know, and I guess I know that when I was in middle school, Bloods and Crips were like a big thing. And I hear on the street from people who just came out of, you know, they're in transition from that life and that lifestyle. And now they're maybe in carpentry and they're, you know, working on a house. So they've transitioned out of it. So what can we create for them to transition to where we're not going to hold their record against them? You know, it's kind of like, because we have all these homes, abandoned homes, and homes that need help. So why not create some kind of transition plan for them to kind of come out of that lifestyle? Because it's there, and a lot of the murders are still gang related. Bloods and Crips, people talk about the Newburgh boys against the Smoketown boys, and there's still, you know, I guess they say that, oh, this rapper came in town and threw this big party and brought in all these drugs and brought in all these weapons, and now we have these young boys who are vulnerable to this, you know, going against each other over who's making the most money off of their cells, you know. So it's like, it's there, but what can we do to help them see, okay, transition to another lifestyle or career, but to be honest with you, they're making more money selling their dope than they are,
and it's easier.
Because it's illegal. If it's legal, if anytime something's illegal, it becomes more expensive.
And then the profit won't be so great.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think
and then you need a business license, permits, everything else that goes into
You're
that.
taking all the fun out of selling heroin.
Exactly. But then on top of that, I think what I hear when we're talking about it too is that a gang is a place to belong. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
so
ultimately, even though we don't
society.
feel, it's an approved community that, you know, most of us talk about, it is still a community. Like, who are those young men gonna call? It's those other young men that they feel like they have that intense connection to, that community with. And so I think I think a lot of times when we talk about gangs, like, the idea is always like job creation is gonna like get rid of this, and I think it might be more community creation. Because a job is just a job for a lot of people. You know, not everyone does something that's amazing for them. You're right. Once people get into their jobs, most people are gonna just come to work. So what is it that you can give people in life that
it's fair to say that America created this problem, because I mean, you look at the 60s when the FBI and other authoritarian groups systematically decapitated any black leadership, murdered them all, and then went through 20 years of the war on drugs, and then all of a sudden, we have a huge gang problem where we didn't have it before. So I don't feel like we need to, sometimes the solution is to just stop doing that, and just stop for a little while and see what shakes down, and then work with that.
But I agree with you. I agree that it is a sense of belonging, a sense of community that can change it. But I don't have answers.
Me neither.
I mean,
thanks for talking about it with me.
I don't know.
Yeah, thanks for talking to me about it.
What do we do to make them feel?
I don't have answers either, but thanks for
I understand it though. Psychologically, I understand that.
One thing that I do want to bring up before we change topics is that I really have enjoyed this. The thing that I think is most needed in Louisville neighborhoods are actually public gathering spaces. Because where is the last time you saw a public restroom in Louisville? Or a public seat that isn't homeless barred, where homeless can't lay out on it, right? Everything that is designed in Louisville is meant to get you from your suburb driveway to your parking lot, because remember, when you drive, you're not actually going to the destination, you're going to the parking lot next to the destination. It's only if you walk you actually get directly to the place. So if you don't have a car and you're too old to drive, or if you're under 16, unless you have someone who has transportation, you are stuck wherever you are. And when I say the word stuck, I mean, if you go outside, you're suspicious. If you can't sit down, you're tired. If you don't have shade, you're hot. And if you're trying to
have a restroom, you're gonna wet yourself.
Or you get arrested for public urination.
Well, they pee in this garage. Like, actually, like,
we
even
saw that recently,
these young boys have nowhere to pee. You know, they're over on their skateboards at the skate park, and they're like, there's no public restroom. Because that would make too much sense. So it's like they're peeing in the corners of this garage. And that's sad.
And the thing is that
they'd pick a porta potty if it was probably out there. Maybe not every single one of them, but most of them.
And the thing is, if you ever ask the council people about that, public restrooms just aren't in the budget. Sorry. Right. And it's like, well, you know, if you didn't spend that on police, maybe it could be.
And that's what ties everything together right there.
Because everything that you're like, well, why doesn't Louisville have that? The reason is that we spend money on other things. That's the only explanation. And all the budget needs to do is just reallocate those funds, and you can build what you want.
And it's about giving the people opportunity. So people join gangs because they don't have any, or they don't. Most cases they don't have opportunity, and in some cases they don't recognize some opportunities. But either way, that's because we're not investing in the right things. So if you invest in open spaces, and, you know, all these things that we've been talking about, if we invest in all these things, the community's better. You know, you have that community feel, so you're not going to go to a gang for that. And if you have opportunity with jobs, with places to get food, like these food deserts in the West End, where, you know, you can't even buy fresh food. You know, if you give people all these things, they're not going to turn the crowd. That's just not what's going to happen. You know, for the most part. I mean, there might be an exception here or there, but people are not going to turn to crime when they have those opportunities. And so that's exactly what we're talking about with Defund the Police, and that's exactly the difference that it would make.
I don't know if you've ever seen this study, but to support your point, Rolf, there was a study once that was done on streaming, back when pirating was like a huge, huge issue. And they did a study that showed once Netflix and Hulu and legal sources became available, people were 10 times more likely to just go ahead and pay the legal source than to do all of the streaming. The majority of people are almost always more comfortable taking the legal route, and that's what they want to do.
Say take the liquor stores out of the West End, you know. I also think there's way too many liquor stores in the West End. Like, if I ride my bike to like Shawnee Park and I pass like 5 liquor stores within a couple of blocks, it's just like, you know.
Like, one of the things that I think is really interesting is that gas stations, they pay multiple people to find the best location to set up their spot, you know, that gets the most traffic, right? Every gas station could be a transit stop, because every gas station has all that asphalt space, but also is conveniently located at the intersection of almost every single major highway in the city. And so it wouldn't be that hard to retrofit some of these parking lot areas to actually have a guaranteed customer stream going into that business, but also a convenient place for people to congregate to get to work and to get the bus transfers. I think that's something to bring up, because everybody wants to talk like transit is so expensive.
It should be free. Like,
it should be free.
It should be free.
Yes.
That's another thing.
Bring back the streetcar.
Yeah, or Metro. You know, divert some of the police budget to free TARC, free Metro,
free bikes, you know.
Wasn't there like a Metro back in the, I don't know, like 50s or something here?
It got dismantled because of cars. So every city official transitioned into owning a car, and then the bus and public transit became associated with the black population and poor people, so it was dismantled.
That's why you'll probably never actually see the streetcar come back as much as we love the streetcar.
Yeah.
And I think it would be an amazing public service that would bring like people to the city just to see it and use it and enjoy it. Like, you know, but the Ford plant's here. And that's just...
We can't use any of the existing rail lines in the city for passenger rail because Ford already controls the freight on 24-hour service on every freight line.
And if you increased like public transportation and a lot of people all of a sudden don't need to buy cars, you're hurting Ford's bottom line.
Yet you're hurting the economy of Louisville if you have public transit. Then you can't sell as many pickup trucks.
Even though the pickup trucks aren't necessarily being bought here in Louisville, it's an offense to their business.
I'm just thinking fuck Ford.
Yeah.
Fuck Ford and fuck Fisher.
And I also will say, little known fun fact.
I'm dropping that.
No, go for it. But a little known fun fact about the city, the airport has first right of refusal on all the salt in the entire county. The last blizzard that was in here, I believe it was 1994, 1995, it caused a whole mess, but the airport was snowed in. And as a result, UPS threatened to move out of Louisville if that ever happened again.
So if you ever go and take a tour of the mega cavern down here in Louisville, they'll show you the giant piles of salt that they have down there that is kept very specifically for the airport to make sure that UPS never leaves Louisville.
Because the thing about it is, once UPS salts their runways and makes sure that the airport is clear, then the city can have whatever is left. And so that's the reason that you see a lot of the piecemeal salting on the roads whenever there's snow, because we're just waiting for the airport to finish up.
Yeah. But see how that went for us with Papa John's, though? We built them a whole entire thing, and they're moving to Atlanta. So
yeah,
I mean, I always think there's like there's always, I don't know the answer to that.
No,
but there's definitely a
trade
imbalance with bringing businesses in and also trying to keep them here. So.
Yeah, running a municipality for the pleasure of a business never sits right with me.
Yeah.
All right. Who wants the last word on defund the police?
Oh goodness! Don't
It sounds like
defund.
Defund.
On the count of 3.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11,
Fuck
12.
I see the Louisville protest scene has moved along a while. New lines.
All right, so we've got one last topic for you here. This one probably won't be as long as the last one because we can literally talk about police forever.
Where'd you say the coffee was?
Oh, yeah.
There's a coffee over there? Or?
It's actually in the lobby where you first came in. So if you walk in, you have to take it to the first floor.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm going to go get a coffee. I'll be right back.
All right.
I think I might use the restroom. Well, I love these.
If we've been talking for too long, of course.
Oh, I shouldn't destroy everything, but I thought that, I feel bad.
No, it's okay.
I need coffee.
We talked for a long time.
Let's see, what are we at? It's not giving me a time like it's supposed to. I don't know how long we've been on here.
I think we started at 7.
Well, normally I would click on it. Okay.
Wow, I didn't feel that.
We could talk about pollinators while everyone else left.
Yes.
All right. So yeah, again, I don't think this is that long of a topic, so we'll knock it out. We might be done by the time they get back.
That's okay.
But yeah, we are facing a crisis with our pollinators. In general, we're in the 6th great mass extinction event of insects and animals. But it's like, this is one of my core issues. If it wasn't for election integrity and stuff like that, I would be focusing on this pollinator issue. That would probably be the top thing for me. We're seeing, bees who pollinate about 30% of our food crops, facing a lot of hazards, especially I hate this word, neonicotinoids.
Mm-hmm.
Neonics is what I'll say from here on out. Neonics has been really dangerous to our, the bee population, as well as our butterflies, and they're pollinating. We also have bats that pollinate and simultaneously eat a lot of the insects that attack our crops. And they're dealing with like white nose syndrome that's really wiping out the bat population. So I think this is a key issue. This is an issue that goes under the radar and very few people talk about it, but you lose 30% of your food system you know, it just cascades from there, and society, as we know it, is probably done. So I know you do work, you know, with gardening and stuff like that, and a lot of the work you do is essential to pollinators. So what do you think we can do about that here in the city? What's the best way to go about it?
I think for anyone that cares about pollinators, anyone that cares about, you know, a butterfly, a bee, a bird, that bat, you know, anything, the best thing you could do is just to plant a native plant in your backyard. If you don't want to have to deal with Metro, worried about your yard looking a mess or anything, honestly, that backyard is a paradise in which you could make a plethora of food either for your family or for those pollinators.
And even if you don't own the house that you are living in, or if you live in an apartment, container gardening with something on your patio, that is still going to bring insects to your area.
You don't have to own land to enjoy the gardening and everything. All that Rolf said was so true, and it is very scary to hear about all of the different things that's threatening our pollinators, but when it just comes down to just bugs in general, one of my favorite fun facts about Louisville is that 250 types of migratory birds come over the Ohio Falls and come directly through Louisville.
Well, Louisville has one of the most biodiversity of any place, including the rainforest in South America.
Not only do the monarchs come through here, but all of those birds do too.
The Ohio River in the birds use it as, they call it a flyway, but when the sun hits the river, it actually acts as a line that the birds can use to follow, so they always have a water source. So because water, for any life to survive, you have to have a water source, but you also have to have food to eat.
Yeah, and out of those 250 different types of migratory birds that come through here, 95% of them will need insects during their life cycle. 95% of them will need bugs. And the thing is that here in Louisville, I'm sure if here, 2020, last year, if you remember, there was a big story that came out that the zip code 40204 was having high increased rates of West Nile disease. And West Nile is no joke. West Nile definitely can make you sick. It is a vector-carried disease. That means that mosquitoes do have it. That is how you get it. So the city's response was to fog the entire zip code of 40204.
Yes.
Now, that fogging, it kills all those mosquitoes. It kills all those bees. It kills all the butterflies. And then by killing all those things, you are killing the birds in your neighborhood. You know, and then when you kill the birds, you're killing, when you've killed all those things, you've killed your chance of ever being able to actually grow something in your yard. Because nothing's ever going to come by. We know plenty of gardeners who are like, I tried it out, but I just didn't get anything. I didn't get a flower. I didn't get this. We went to Change Today, Change Tomorrow's facility a few months ago, back in the summer, before they had started doing some of their planting. They had a gorgeous magnolia tree in their yard. You could not tell it was a magnolia. There were not enough bugs in the area to ever come by to pollinate it, to ever make any
no seeds
at
all.
No seeds at all.
Is that the one you all did a video for?
Yeah, we did do a video
that,
of that. Yeah. But the thing is that you know, and if you think that really when the city fogs 40204 that it's only going in 40204, that's ridiculous.
It's going in all the air vents in 40204. If you have an AC unit on the back of your house and a mosquito fogger rolls up and the AC is on, all that fog gets sucked into your home. So if you don't air out your don't air out your home, then you actually are breathing, and your children are breathing volatile pesticides.
So how much of your allergies, Louisville, are actually pollinators when they're actually all dead? And how much of it is the fogging chemicals that are being sprayed over your home?
And so one of the things that I like to talk about, because trying to convince someone in Metro government to end mosquito spraying, it's like you're saying, I want to give everybody West Nile.
Which of course we don't want to give people West Nile. I'm a healthcare professional. That's absurd.
But the problem is that we are so far removed from nature here that most people that live in Louisville actually own a lawn. And a lawn is not a natural occurring thing. I don't know if you know.
It is from the plantation mindset. We mow our lawns so that they look some sort of beautiful standard that comes from having the plantation style home in the front that shows that you're wealthy and you can maintain it.
And most of the time when you have, especially out in the East End where it's 5 acres of mowed grass, you can, that's what in agriculture terms, that's a monoculture. So you don't have any flowers on grass. Grass, if it gets too high, then it's technically a weed and illegal.
We're also talking very particularly about the kind of grass that you cut. Now, grasses are great. Grasses produce, like, natural grasses that get tall, small, big. They have tons of seeds. People, like, there's actually pollinators and stuff that eat it. But if you look at the grass that is growing in your yard, are there bug holes in it? Like, is there something chewing on that grass in your yard? Because I'm willing to bet that nothing is eating it.
Because you've probably already sprayed the weed killer on it, the ant killer on it, the pesticides on it, the fertilizer on it to make sure that you have the best grass and make sure that your neighbor doesn't have as good a property as you do. And all you're doing is just destroying the soil and the actual land that you built your house on.
And so you're asking yourself, well, how am I going to keep those bugs out of my house? I don't want spiders and ants and shit in my house. Well, the thing is that the best way to keep pests out of your house is to keep your house dry. If you make sure that the seal on your house is as good as it can be, bugs go into your home to drink the moisture that is in it. Without the moisture, they cannot survive and they cannot subside. And the same thing for the outside. If you're having troubles with mosquitoes, look for your standing water.
Yep.
You can also purchase praying mantises that naturally eat them.
That's cool.
Lay down some bird seed. Bring some birds into your yard. They're gonna eat those bugs.
Chickens.
Too.
Ladybugs.
Yeah, chickens.
ladybugs.
Yeah.
And I mean, the thing about
Get
it...
a possum.
and-
Just kidding, don't buy a possum. Possums are great though.
Possums are free.
Right.
Possums come
Never
by for
pay
free.
for a possum.
Don't pay for the possum.
But one of the
Pay for
things,
two.
one of the things that I really like to bring up when we talk about gardening is there's so many different taxpayer-funded ways that Metro keeps gardening from happening in the city.
They're
And-
making sure that you can't garden, that you're going to be unsuccessful gardening, and that you're going to need to go to Kroger.
And so when you spray mosquito spray, especially along this channelized portion of Beargrass Creek that looks like, the LA River, it's this giant concrete ditch
The
in the
ditch,
middle of the
yeah,
city,
I know.
right?
Yeah.
And so
The
they
city.
did that for flood control.
They did it for flood control.
And
yeah.
so it's to get the water moving as fast as it can out whenever it rains really hard, which in the 30s, that was fine, but that was planning for 1930s weather. It is completely different in 2020. So
Did they build that before or after the 1930s?
that was after the 30s.
I thought so. Okay.
But the problem with having that is that you have concrete. Concrete does not allow any of that water to actually settle.
No.
So if there's any water left over from a flood or from a heavy rain, then it's standing water anyway. That's mosquitoes. So then they come in with pesticides, they fog the pesticide, and then it kills the mosquitoes, right? But it also kills the entire food chain. And so there are no birds to eat the mosquitoes that are left over, so you just have to keep spraying and keep spraying.
This problem is pervasive down to our natural agricultural situation. When we're talking about the difference between organic and non-organic foods, ultimately organic foods are going to make your body end up feeling better because they've done a recent study. When you're just eating normal non-organic matter, they can trace the chemicals that are coated that they use to help grow and protect and keep all the bugs away. They can be found in our systems up to 48 hours after eating non-organic material. So I think of the QAnon guy that got awarded the organic meals inside prison, and not that I think he should have done that, but his big argument was that he felt like crap if he did an organic food. We would all feel like crap if we ate organic and then did not eat non-organic food, because our non-organic food is full of poison. Monsanto has poisoned us.
And our bodies are not designed to do anything with those poisons, so they don't pass through the body, they just build up. So you get trace amount after trace amount. And then also, as somebody who's big into organic, they are healthier. So you get higher percentage of antioxidants in an organic fruit as you would, non-organic. Jeff, I want to turn to you for a second because you live out in the country as opposed to us city dwellers here.
I do not have any neighbors.
Nice.
That
Pretty cool. Yeah.
is cool.
So that makes me wonder, with all that land out there, what are you seeing with pollinators out there? Have you seen an increase, decrease, stay the same?
Actually, you really got me thinking. Like, nothing grew this year anywhere. Like, there were no mulberries, there were no walnuts, nothing grew.
What?
And I was wondering if it was just a 2020 thing, but now I'm thinking, like, maybe it is a lack of pollinators. Like, our strawberries didn't really, like, everybody's been talking about it. We just have no idea why. Like, nothing grew. There were entire fields full of soybeans, and they just, at one point, they just stopped. No idea why. And I mean, it's not just your imagination. Like, if you think about mulberry tree, if you're in Kentucky, you probably have a mulberry tree in your neighborhood, and if you think about it, it probably didn't drop any mulberries this year. And maybe that is the pollinators. I don't really know. I've been like 2020, I was very busy, and didn't really, I got stung by a bee. But other than that, I can't really remember if there were bees or there weren't. I know some people down the street from us keep beehives, but it is an interesting thought that, like, maybe the reason why nothing's growing out in the country is because the toxicity levels just reached the point where bees just can't survive.
I know this is a goofy way to remember, but do y'all remember going on car trips like maybe 10 to 20 years ago?
Yeah.
How many bugs would be on the
Absolutely,
windshield?
yeah. It's gotten weird.
To me,
Yeah.
that's I know I've only seen it like as a joke on the internet, but
No,
to me
but it's
that's a
true.
remarkable
Yeah.
difference. Like, I can
Yeah.
drive home to Pennsylvania and
Yeah, and the car's
windshield's
still clean.
fine.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
it's wild.
It used to be that you would have to wash your windshield like several times on a
Yeah.
car trip, and now you don't have to do it
Yeah.
once. And I mean, I've been to beaches down in Ensenada that were just like, empty. It was just like sand. There wasn't even a bird. There were no seashells. There's nothing. And yeah, I mean, it does seem to me that the rise in birth defects and autism, I think, is also related to this huge chemical burden that we have. So where we live out in the country, we actually have the headwaters of Somerset Creek,
Okay.
which starts on our land, and we take it really seriously. We don't use any chemicals at all for anything at all. If I have any sort of like weird stuff that ends up at the house, I always take it to town because we want to keep that creek clean as long as we can. And it's very rewarding. But yeah, maybe there just aren't a lot of pollinators.
One thing that we're doing, sorry.
Oh no, I was just going to add my little 2 cents because I recently watched this documentary on diversified farming. My uncle has a lot of acreage in Henderson, is it Henderson County, I think, in Indiana. And like, I think he's dependent on like his subsidized farming techniques because he gets some money for growing corn from the government.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like for corn and for soy.
Guaranteed profit.
Guaranteed profit.
So it's like this, like how do you break farmers from, being so dependent on the government subsidies and maybe taking a risk in this diversified farming technique to allow growing more trees and different varieties of species and plants or crops to where I don't know.
There is a program where they will pay you to have to just plant flowers for pollinators. I can tell you what it's called if you're really curious.
And I actually have a fun answer to this. I saw a documentary that addresses this that particular issue, and I can't stop thinking about it myself because we subsidize the corn, the soy, the wheat, the stuff that's going to give them a profit no matter what. Whether or not it grows or not, those farmers are going to get that money from the government to make that. But it has actually been shown that us tilling the earth in the way that it takes to grow that is what is releasing a lot of that CO2 into the air. And to mention that our soil is just dying underneath it. Yeah. In the documentary, they explained like you used to be able to get a bushel of something to grow with inputs of nitrogen about like 7 gallons or something. Now it takes anywhere from 14 to 17 to get the same exact thing to grow. And they told a story about a man who was having that exact issue. He'd had a couple bad winters or the seasons, there was a flood the one year, a drought the next year, stuff like tornado, he was running out of money, he was running out of credit to buy the inputs for the soil.
Crop insurance
wasn't going through,
And he said that the farmers around him were just waiting to buy his land. And that's when he got into permaculture instead. And the idea of permaculture is planting enough varieties of food and of even the same, it blows my mind how many different varieties we have, but we have the idea that, you can go to the store and get more than one type of apple. But there are way more types of apples than just the apples at the store. So he started planting stuff in a way where, one, it didn't matter if any one thing died. He had so many different varieties of plants grown. If any one crop was lost at one point, he had other varieties to rely upon. And then two, once he had, by having all those varieties, the gathering times became practically year-long. He could collect a different thing every month, and as profits are stratified. For most farmers, they only make about like $10 or so off an acre, off of that traditional soybean input model. This guy was making $100 an acre off of his variety sign. His farm is half the size of most people's farms, and he is making so much money because he's variety. And he even showed the difference between eggs. And it was so interesting because he cracked the eggs in, and one was a non-caged egg that you would just get at the store. Then there was a non-caged egg that he got from his land that was wandering with over 20 different varieties of grass that it was just eating through. And the yolk was so beautiful and yellow and amazing. And so I just think that addressing farming in this way is huge. We're handicapping our farmers by giving them these subsidies, unfortunately. And I believe in supporting our farmers and making sure that they can continue, and don't want to see farmers lose their jobs, but I don't think we're doing them any favors by requiring them to grow them.
How would you feel about just switching those subsidies to do permaculture and crop rotation, to where the farmers are still taken care of, but we're paying them to do something beneficial?
It would honestly be great to have the farmers be the first line of research into what varieties would best grow during climate change in Kentucky.
If you can hit 10 varieties, you get a certain amount, you hit 20, you can get more money, you hit 40, you can get a different subsidy. It may be incentivizing, diversifying products.
Because eventually the climate change is not going to stop when we die. Right,
and if we don't utilize all the varieties of food that we have, we're going to lose them. There's a reason that there's hundreds and hundreds of types of kiwis, but there's only one in the store.
Or corn.
Or corn, or pick any one. Tomato, potatoes.
You know about the tomato warehouse, right, in Round County?
No,
they've got a mile-long greenhouse in Round County, and they're going to start making all the tomatoes for the entire eastern seaboard right there in Round County.
Wow.
Yeah, it's got some kind of dumb internet name like iTomato. I can't remember. But yeah, they're serious. It's an
item for short.
One thing while I'm thinking about it.
Heck yeah, Cindy.
Pizzas are going to be better though,
right? But for permaculture, especially for farmers that are in traditional agriculture, tilling, it's a big shift. But one thing that they are doing in the Great Plains, specifically Nebraska, which I think is really interesting, is they are implementing these, they're no more than 4 foot, 5 foot wide sections between it's still a monoculture, wheat, but in between they have these 5 foot sections that they call prairie strips, where all they're doing is just letting the seed bank in the soil grow up wildflowers. They didn't actually need to do anything. The seeds are already there. They're just letting them grow instead of cutting them down. And because those wildflowers are growing, the pollinators live in the field year round. And so as a result, the agricultural yield actually increases because you already have the native flowers and the pollinators on site.
I think that's great, but I think ultimately permaculture is the way to save our soil.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think we need to plant stuff like hemp as well, which helps to
extract toxins.
Yes.
They have so much hemp growing across the street from my house. It's hilarious.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's really funny.
I worry about even organic produce being depleted of trace minerals just because the mass production, not giving the soil enough time to kind of regenerate.
That's a really fair concern.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the best way to address that concern is honestly to eat local.
You know, because anytime you're eating something that comes from far away, like I buy stuff from Kroger. I'm not going to act like I'm too good to buy things from Kroger, but you know, anytime we unfortunately buy produce from Kroger, it's not coming from around here.
No, it's from Peru.
So you're right. Even if it is organic, sometimes you know the desire to get it raised quickly and here to Louisville or wherever it's going is taking precedent over getting all of that really great minerals and stuff in
That's
it.
what worries me about the tomato warehouse, because they're doing it hydroponically, so there's not going to be any trace minerals in there unless they put them in on purpose. Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Hydroponics is cool, but
Yeah, it's sort of cool. Like, you know, after the apocalypse, it'll be great, but right now,
One thing that I think would be a great use of Metro budget is honestly investing in different urban agriculture methods. Because, I mean, with the way that the soil is, until the 1940s, actually I think it was a little bit later, but whenever lead-based gasoline was actually outlawed,
not the 1940s, 1980.
1980. Then all the one-way streets in downtown Louisville, all the soil on either side of those one-way streets is contaminated by the exhaust from the cars.
which is why planting things like hemp and sunflowers, like Rolf mentioned, that can extract toxins from the soil is important.
So, you know, when we're talking about trying to bring agriculture back, you have to do it safely. Because unless you know what soil you're planting in, or unless you can remediate the soil in some way, it's still a risk to even try to grow your own food. So
always test your soil. Just, you know, it's more likely to contain lead if you're along the street, but sometimes backyards can be okay, but it's never really safe unless you know exactly what's in your soil.
So container gardening, that's what we're using the seed bank for mostly right now, just to make sure that we're giving away pots, we're giving away compost in the pots, we're trying to make it as easy as possible. But eventually, if we're going to scale it to a metro-wide organization, whether it's through the library system or whatever, we want to make sure that everybody has that knowledge base, because it doesn't matter where you come from or what neighborhood you live in, everybody has to eat 3 meals a day. You know, I mean, like that food is as much a human right as housing, and we need both of them in Louisville. I mean, that's honestly all I got.
Education, honestly. I mean, education should not stop just because people turn 18 or whatever. You know, like I think Kentucky has a constitutional requirement to do a lot more adult education.
I kind of felt like it's like an exclusive thing. Like you have to be in high school part of FFA to learn about. You know, it's kind of like, I think these classes should be more mainstream in the curriculum. I think children should be learning this earlier on. You know,
absolutely.
You know, we need to rethink our curriculum. We need, you know.
Well, coronavirus is, I don't know if any of y'all have kids, but coronavirus has sort of really revealed some weaknesses in the public education system.
Oh, I'm sure.
And we're rethinking a lot of things across the board.
Yeah.
I mean, after a year without public education, people are like, what were we teaching? Were we teaching anything? Like, what have we lost?
That's horrible.
For anyone that's interested, the documentary that I keep referring to is available on Netflix, and it's called Kiss the Ground.
Kiss the ground.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Nice.
Aren't honeybees like not native? Like they're not our native pollinators?
Yes, so Kentucky actually has dozens of native bees.
I didn't know that.
But honeybees were brought in from Europe by European settlers, and specifically to make honey. And that is good, but it's really important that when you talk about having native wildflowers, or you're wanting to turn your lawn into either a garden or a more natural setting like a park with flowers and more like preserve always make sure that whatever you plant with the flowers, if they grow and they make flowers and everything, don't cut them back, because the native bees will actually drill a tiny little hole in the stem of the wildflowers, and that's what they use to lay their eggs. So if you cut it down like we see on the grass, if you cut it down to 2 inches, you're actually making sure that no native insect can live in your property.
Speaking of native insects too, that's a good point, where we've talked a lot about different pollinators, but I feel like one of the pollinators that gets ignored is the fly. Like there are some, plants that only get pollinated by flies. So when you have your compost and you're doing that kind of thing, and there's larvae and flies coming from there, that's also an important pollinator. I often forget that certain plants are only pollinated by certain pollinators. Some only get pollinated by butterflies, so some are only by the bees, some are only by those flies.
Magnolia trees are only beetles, right?
I don't know. That's cool
sure.
if it's
That's
true,
cool.
though.
Yeah.
That's cool.
But when you're trying to rewild your space, or you have a property that you're not sure what the hell you're going to do, start with your compost, and from your compost, bugs will come, and once the bugs come, the birds will come. You have to basically start a food chain from scratch.
And when the birds come, honestly, if you don't plant
around.
anything naturally, they will bring seeds to your yard. The birds will bring seeds to your yard.
If the birds are healthy, an environment will be healthy.
Yes. Sorry, go on.
Or chickens.
Something I want to bring up we haven't touched on is not only the problems that the pollinators are facing, but something that we are doing with pollinators that isn't working, and that's the nativity of it, and that's basically these traveling bees. These people, they have their bees, they take them all around the country, and that's what they do. They move from state to state during each season, but these are not the native bees. So you're kind of, you're moving these groups of bees across the country, and it's just kind of, in effect, you probably understand it better than me, but they're in effect kind of starving out the native pollinators and
exhausting the bees.
Because they're too good, yeah.
So how do we fix that issue?
Stop eating almonds.
Bees. What's going on? I didn't know about the
multi-million-dollar industry.
so
it's operation.
One of the things that I think could remedy that is honestly just talking to the local farmers about planting wildflowers in some of these other spaces to attract pollinators already.
Or supporting local businesses. I don't know if there's a lot like them, but like Idlewild that knows exactly what kind of bugs are the best for this environment, for your yard, that are native and beneficial.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I mean, above all else, like for what we're talking about with anything native or garden, whatever, I always like to say, mow what you use.
Yeah.
Because when you're in the suburbs, you see 5 acres of grass. Do you really think that 75-year-old retiree is going on 100% of his lawn?
Right.
No. They're doing it to maintain property values.
Keep what you're using. If you guys have barbecues outside, keep that grass. If your dog enjoys a big part of your yard, keep that grass. But if there's a big part of your yard that you're just mowing to mow,
that has a lot of standing water,
get rid of it. Also, if you're mowing your dead-ass lawn, stop. That's crazy. That bothers me. Stop it. Stop mowing. If your yard is dead already, stop. Just stop mowing. Stop.
Yeah, I was working for a landscaping company in Texas, and it was just, I couldn't do it because they were everything was, you would just be going around and mowing the same lawn, and you couldn't tell where you'd mowed. Yeah, and you were blowing it. I mean, the grass was getting destroyed down to the roots just by the mowing process, and then you get out there with a leaf blower, which is one of the most diabolical inventions.
That's actually the worst thing for insects out of anything. It's the leaf blower.
Man, my dad loves his leaf blower.
Well, you all would love my yard. We've lived there for 2 years and we haven't mowed it once yet.
I love it.
Leave the leaves.
Yeah. So mow what you use and leave the leaves. Those are our 2 big catchphrases.
All right.
Because a lot of things lay their eggs in leaves. I didn't know that, but a lot of moths and stuff, which are also pollinators, moths. We haven't mentioned moths yet, but things grow in those leaves. They're living in there. I know as a kid, I used to enjoy fireflies a lot. And if you're wondering now where the hell did the fireflies went, it's because they lay their eggs in fallen leaves, and if you pick up the fallen leaves and throw them out, you're throwing away the fireflies.
And that's why the suburbs, every time there's a new subdivision that comes in and clear cuts the forest, you're actually killing all the firefly eggs that all the neighboring communities used to love. So it's
that's sad. Yeah,
it sucks.
Makes a lot of sense.
And then no matter what, whenever the new subdivision is built, it's completely standard practice that every home has a mandatory lawn that's approved by the government planning. And so as a result of us normalizing this kind of, of course you have a lawn, it's your house. No, you're doing it because someone in the 1800s used to own slaves and they were the richest person in the county and everybody wanted to copy them.
That way.
you know, and then it's just trickled down for 200 years, so much so that we think it's completely normal to just mow your lawn every year until you die.
To the point where you'll mow it even if it's dead.
Yeah.
And we spend over, I believe this last budget where we voted to increase the police raises, we actually allocated $500,000 to cut grass on metro right-of-ways.
It makes our city budget like between $3 to $4 million that is solely committed to cutting grass.
On a plant that grows back.
Defund the lawnmower.
Yeah.
Defund the lawnmower.
They actually make fun of us in China for doing that. Like, you know, we put
They
money.
deserve to.
Like, it's
Lawnies.
like we put- yeah.
Yeah, actually, I have a funny story about that because I got made fun of when I was in China. I did business over there, but they wanted to see my house on Google Maps, so I showed them, and they're like, "Wow, you have so much." Like, you have I was showing them the suburbs, right? And they're like, "Wow, every house has a farm." And I say, "Well, no, we don't." And they say, "Well, what do you mean? What's all this? What are you growing?" And I say, "Oh, well, we're growing grass." Oh, for the hay. And I say, "No, not for the hay." And they're like, "Oh, so what do you do?" And I say, "Oh, well, we mow it." And they say, What do you sell it? Do you sell the grass?
The first time he told me this was the first time I was like, why do you?
Yeah, and I say, no, we don't sell the grass. Oh, so you use it to meditate. It's like a Zen garden. You're going around in circles. I understand that. And then I say, well, actually, no, we don't walk. We usually have this riding lawnmower. And it's like, how much did the riding lawnmower cost? And I say, oh, about like $2,000, $3,000. And they say, so you have farm equipment, you farm at least twice a month, but you don't sell the crop. And I say, yes. And it's like, and thousands of people do this? And I say, yes. And they say, why? And I say, because if we don't, we get fined. Like, what?
Speed of capitalism, you would understand.
Yeah. So I mean, it's when you explain a law like that, it really makes a lot of people kind of question. Because I mean, do we want that for our kids? Do we want to be like, someday, Junior, you're going to grow up and you're going to be able to get frustrated just like I am?
Why did my dad spend so much time taking care of our yard?
When he didn't spend it, with anything else.
Yeah, it's sad.
But we can change it in the city. I'm excited for it. I am. That is one of the things that I stand up on my soapbox, and I make a lot of people feel awkward because city planners, they hate it when I call suburbs plantation zoning.
Yeah, that's bad.
But they all live there, so they all know what I'm talking about. So again, if you want to make your public official feel a little awkward, ask them if they have a lawn and ask them if they mow it themselves, because most of them don't have the time to, so they pay somebody else to.
Yeah.
For the economy.
That's a good spot to wrap up this discussion on pollinators. I want to read a comment here from Cindy. Thanks for sticking with us through this whole thing, Cindy.
Cindy.
You're awesome. Cindy was
on
in politics and stuff with me, so it's great to see Cindy out of Houston, Texas.
Yeah.
But Cindy says, I was about to watch TV when I saw this live stream start. I'm so glad I decided to watch. I'm enjoying this discussion. You're covering all the topics that I really care about.
Aww.
So thank you, Cindy.
Yeah.
Thanks, Cindy.
So does anybody have any final thoughts before we get out of here? Or you all just want me to wrap it?
One
Thanks
place where
for having
pollinators
us.
are really thriving is Minecraft. I'm just putting that out there.
I would say
Next episode, we're talking Minecraft pollinators, people.
Yes!
Yes.
I want to say thank you, Rolf, for introducing me to independent media. I know that before, the uprising in the city over, the movement, I know we have all these live streamers now, and it's great because it's holding police accountable. But even before that, you were doing your thing with your show and interviewing activists, and I just want to thank you for putting me on to independent media, and I think everybody should support independent media. I think it's way better than our mainstream channels.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
So, and that's actually all I watch, that I pretty much tune into live streams, and, I feel like I'm so much more informed and in touch with what's going on in the city. So, kudos to you, and congratulations on your 50th episode. And
thank you.
Yeah, cheers. That's all.
Anybody else here before we wrap it up?
Rob, I just want to thank you again for having me on the show, but I also want to say again, you have done an amazing job in keeping the local issues at the forefront of public discussion, and you have put in the work to make that happen, and I really appreciate everything that you do.
That'll make me blush under this mask right now.
Yeah, no, it's really working pretty much the way you intended it to. I remember this is your plan, and now it's happening.
Yeah. So we're not done though.
We're not.
Oh no.
So we're just getting
Not
started.
assassinate us.
Hey.
That's when you know you made it.
This is just the first 50. It's not the last.
Last thing you say is yes.
Well, if you're assassinated, you really made it. If you're murdered, you would know it.
Oh yeah, that's true. They changed the verb if you're famous.
Yeah.
That's true.
Sorry.
All right, so I want to thank all of my guests today, starting here from left to right. First, Beargrass Thunder. Check them out at Beargrass Thunder on all the outlets. That's Mariah Corso there on the left, Jody Dahmer on the right. Thanks, guys, for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jeff Sebesta there in the middle, coming all the way from Eastern Kentucky, so we appreciate you spending a Friday night here with us.
Oh, my pleasure. It's been a good time.
And, of course, Melanie Cameron over here on the right. Appreciate you being here. Appreciate you letting us use the space here in the building. We are in Nulu today, by the way.
Actually, it's Butchertown.
Technically?
Yeah.
Oh, well,
Technically, I mean, I know we're steps away from Nulu, but this is Butchertown. It's by no means is it historic, obviously. But I mean, hey,
I stand corrected. We are Nulu adjacent, so.
Yeah.
Forget it, Rolf. It's Butchertown.
So, yeah. So I appreciate everybody watching. Just say, follow independent media. I am local, independent, and nonprofit. You can find me, of course, here on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter at the Louisville ProActivist Report. So smash all the appropriate buttons.
Oh yeah, buy my comic book.
Yes, buy Jeff's comic book. Where can you get that? What's
It's on
it called?
Kickstarter. War on Christmas.
War
on Christmas by Jeff Sebesta on Kickstarter. Check that out.
Yep.
I haven't seen it, but I know Jeff, and it's going to be good. So yeah, this is not my usual format. I appreciate you all watching this. Commenting, sharing it out. I will still be doing the live streams. I'll still be doing the interviews, but I'm probably going to mix one or two of these in here and there. So different topics, different panels, and we're going to discuss all the stuff that's important to you. So again, thanks for watching. Until next time, and remember, always think critically.